Okay, so Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
I worked a little bit on the format of our agenda to include contact information. I realized we didn't have that previously. And before we get started, I just wanted to say that if you look under action items at the end of the general meeting agenda, so that will be very quick. So if you get any ideas, or if you already have any ideas, but if you get any throughout the meeting for what could be on the general meeting agenda, just write them down so that you can just throw them at me at the end.
Hi, Joanne. Hi.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi. I'm confused. I don't see any contact information.
Oh, it's all
Right
right
under-
here at the top.
That's for the.
I think, okay, got it.
Just list this so that we're at least.
Okay.
Oh, one thing I might want to add to discussion items, just because it came up recently, is neighborhood people have been asking for an independent audit of the neighborhood association. And we should at least
So
discuss
maybe we
that.
can discuss that under the treasurer's report. Okay.
Okay, we need to pull another chair in here.
Yo, Lena.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Oh.
And the only thing that wouldn't cost
Come on,
money
scoot
would
over,
be
I got
my
room.
friend, but that wouldn't necessarily be independent.
Right, no friends.
And I had a couple of things I needed to add.
Okay.
I'll just do a report on some information. It's not really a land use
Oh.
report, so that I've gotten from.
You're talking about
other
for the
city
general
folks.
meeting or for here?
No, for here.
Oh yeah, sorry I didn't include
That's
the
okay.
report for
No.
you, okay.
I don't really, there's no land use stuff came out.
Okay.
Other than what's in this envelope, which is not the case yet, but.
So,
And then on action items, I've actually been requested by the city that we need to appoint someone to the Oregon Solutions Project for the floodplain restoration committee.
okay,
So I told them I would ask them at this meeting if one of us wants to.
Point someone for what was that? For
As the LNA rep to the Oregon Solutions, Johnson, or Foster, floodplain jobs or employment and habitat. I
Okay.
can't remember the full name of the project
I
that's going
thought
on.
Nick Christensen's doing that.
Nick is a neighbor rep
He's a
on the
neighbor rep,
committee,
okay.
and previously Judy had just decided she was the one that was gonna go on her own and had been going to the meetings, but I guess she's not been going, so they were asking for someone official from the LNA, so, yeah.
okay, so with that we can get started. So it looks like the only person we're missing tonight is Jennifer. I'm just saying that for the people taking notes, right?
Right.
Yeah, Jennifer Young.
Jennifer Young is not here.
Yes.
And
So, yeah, let's get started.
Amina.
No,
Amina's
she's
here.
here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. You kind of snuck in under my radar when I
So
was looking down, I think.
first item on the agenda, report from the Livability Committee.
Okay. Yeah, it's livability/public safety. The
Okay.
two committees have, we've collaborated on this project that we're working on. We have created a public forum that is going to take place next month on the 13th, which is a Tuesday night from, it'll start at 7 and end approximately 9, although we have the space from 6:30 to 9:30. It's going to be at Kelly Elementary School, at the more southern end of Lents. And our keynote speaker is going to be the new Chief of Police, Danielle Outlaw. And although she's not going to be the only speaker, but it will be an opportunity for the community to meet her. The point of this forum, and we're calling it a public safety forum, is first of all it's a follow-up to what took place in April, which was our town hall. And the town hall was really a kind of a five-alarm fire. Like, we are in huge distress in Lents, and it was explaining various things that we were distressed about in Lents. So this is going to be, there'll be a quick recap of that, move to where we are today, which is significantly different than where we were April 4th. And where are we going? And it's going to be also, as part of that, the new police chief and her vision of how she sees the police moving forward in our city, what she's kind of changes she sees coming, and how that reflects to our neighborhood. Also attending will be Sergeant Randy Teig and the NERT officers. We are quite sure we're going to have one of the DAs at the meeting also, but we're not sure which one. There's a transition going on right now at the office. The main guy is retiring, and the two other people coming up behind him. It's kind so we're waiting for that. Also, the park rangers would be there. We're working on Theodore Miller from ODOT. We're trying to get representatives from Multnomah County. That's not always been easy. When we've tried to get Kafori to come to our meetings in the past, we have gotten little response.
So we're trying the other
Have you-
person.
We're trying, it would be, pardon, Jessica?
Jessica Vigapito.
Yeah.
I have Hayden Miller's contact info, and that's her
Oh, you have her-
constituent liaison.
Oh.
We're
Okay.
a pretty diverse thing, so maybe Kafori will come. She needs some good press.
Well, she might. That would
Yeah,
be,
exactly.
it would be,
Yeah.
because that tends to be,
Yeah.
as
could
we've
be very
gone through all of our
interesting.
processes of trying to figure out what we can do, besides the trouble that we've had with ODOT's laws being different than the cities, and that being a real sticking point for resolving some of the issues that we've been dealing with in the neighborhood. Multnomah County is a bottleneck for, it's kind of like this now with the even though there's supposed to be this diversion program for people that are drug offenders, as opposed to more serious, they've lowered the level of the crime from felonies down to misdemeanors, and it's supposed to be diversion, and with money following. But if the choice is you either go to diversion or you go to probation, it ends up being a choice that who's going to take diversion? Most people are going to take probation, and so that's where we are right now. And so, the DA and the county are just, I mean, right now it's just kind of stuck there. That's the bottleneck. So the forum will be taking place. It'll start out with this, basically us doing a little PowerPoint to express where we were, where we are, and where we want to go, and then introduce the panel. And they will be making fairly brief 5-minute, 10-minute at the most presentation. And we are going to be passing out to everybody that attends a card and a pencil to write down questions, which we will collect at the break at the end of the first panel, the round with the panel. And then we will be asking questions from those questions of the panel. As well, this is going to be live streamed to the neighborhood, and we're still working on how exactly, what format we're going to use. Facebook is an option, Periscope is another one, and I'm assuming you'll be filming it too, Robert? Also? Or not? Yeah, you'll be filming it also. He's working on it also. He's on the committee. So that's going to be something that I think, this is kind of like us rolling that out as a possibility, I think, for future meetings, not just for like special forums, but maybe we can do that for all of our meetings. So that's pretty exciting. Also, what's going to be happening over the next few weeks is we will be doing surveys and polls of the neighborhood as broadly as we can to help develop questions for this, and what people consider to be their biggest concerns to bring to this meeting to present to the panel. And several people on the committee, I'm not one of the ones working on that, but several people on the committee are working on those polls and the questions, keeping them fairly simple, but I won't get into the weeds about that. Okay, then the last part of this is the needle exchange idea.
1 second.
That's sort of part of the same thing.
It is part
Yeah,
of
it is.
Okay.
Yeah, the needle depository is part of the same thing. Last month, several of us met with Multnomah County Health and with the fire department regarding down on Powell regarding the possibility of placing a needle deposit in Lents. And first of all, it's not a done deal. It's not like the thing is coming, it's going to happen to Lents, and it doesn't matter what you think or where you think it should be, it's going in. So we presented to them the results of our survey, of which there were over 160 responses. And the most common answer was the fire department is a good place for people to be. That should be the place where if there's a depository. The fire department representative said that currently the fire department is set up to, like, if you come in with a couple of needles, they say, great, we can take it, and they've got a place to stick it. But they're not at the moment equipped to take masses of needles. The community, when the responses on the survey had basically said that this should not just be Lents, this should be all fire departments around the city. I mean, we're not the only ones that have a neighborhood that has a drug issue with syringes ending up being, tossed into the, and to the point, there was just a little girl stabbed yesterday on the Max. Somebody had stuck a needle down in the, between the seats, like a little 5-year-old little girl. Yeah, she was just stabbed with a hypodermic needle, a used hypo. So this is, this is still a very big issue in the city. So the fire department was they're kind of looking at that. The city is, they're considering, right now in Montevilla, there is actually an exchange. It's a mobile exchange that comes in a couple times a week, and they have a place they park and set up, and people bring in needles and they get, they just do an exchange. But it's not a depository. The ones that currently exist, which are downtown and then across the river on the Espelon near OMSI in that area, the one downtown has had some vandalism, although they've never quite they've damaged it but never quite gotten into the box. And the one on the east side has worked fine without any problem. So at the moment, there's not really, it's still very much floating about how this will manifest. There's nobody like saying it needs to go in this one place and that's what we're doing, we don't care what you say. So, one last bit about that. The Springwater Trail was very low on the list. Foster, 82nd and Foster was also very low on the list, as was I believe the other.
How this is a representative survey?
Well, it's not representative. I mean, it's not going to be. It was over social media. This is how we did it.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. Are you asking about the future surveys that they're developing, or the one that they've already had out?
Yeah, this one. So you're talking about the results of a survey, and I'm curious who that
It went out on
represents.
social media to the various groups that we have in Lents, and like I said, there were approximately 160 responses, and that was the best that we could do. When we have we discussed this last night. This is off topic of the needles, but it relates to this in the sense of a survey. The cost of doing right now, we don't have the means to do translations. And to get surveys any broader reach, we don't have the man or woman power to do it at this point. And so we're trying to reach out as much as we possibly can with our own limited resources that we have available to us. So
We actually do through ONI.
well, that's yes and no. You have to pay for it yourself, and then you can get reimbursed. So it's not like ONI will pay for it. We have to come up with the bucks. Figure out, we have to find the translators, we have to do all that, and then ONI, we can turn everything in and they'll pay us at some point.
And I'm not wanting to critique the survey, but I'm just thinking that as like you're jumping into presenting the survey results, and that as part of the introduction to that of saying there was a survey that was limited to Facebook and like let's say I Love Lents group and the Lents Neighborhood Association group and this third one. And this is who we're talking about, the people from those groups that responded, just so it's clear who's being represented. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily.
It got reposted on a lot of the Lents pages.
Okay.
So
It was this Survey Monkey survey.
yeah, and other
so
sites,
this is
other
passed
sites
around?
reposted the things. But I've got to be really honest about just about everything. And if you really want to look at all of our Lents pages, which there are like 35, the vocal people are around 160 people. If you see them on the pages, the people on multiple pages, to me, I am from a part of Lents that I have, probably 50 families that I'm friends with that aren't represented in that, and they're not represented because, to be really honest, they were driven away by the kind of shady politics that have been going on with the LNA for quite some time, just the bickering. It's more the bickering and them feeling like, and part of it is bickering, part of it is them feeling like, what do we actually do? Like what, essentially the city and the county do whatever they want anyway. I think that the Livability Committee has done a lot of good things that have shown that we can actually make and affect change, and I think that's why I said from the beginning, I really want us to just try to start affecting change in that way. I think that our committees are much more powerful than the people in this room, to be quite honest. I think that because of the negative connotation of this group, and it's nobody else's fault, and it's been there since I moved here 5 years ago, and there was nobody, I don't think there was anybody here that was on that board. I think that.
No, Ray.
Were you? And so I think that that.
I think you're on hiatus, Ray, you can.
Fine, like, yeah, I think you weren't on there when and so.
Let's see, I had
You're too honest, you're too honest.
So.
2 full terms as at large and then treasurer committee. So yeah, I was on.
You were on break, right?
Whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that, yeah, I work at a domestic violence shelter, and we try to do things, and again, minus us being able to go and get that, and I could help with the idea of us getting the translation, because we have to do translation services. But translation, as far as like written, so that's legal, so that is incredibly expensive. We'd be talking, depending on, like, say it was just a 1-page flyer, probably it would be about $200 per language.
Yeah.
And so that would be a huge commitment of the monies that we have. And then, to me, I would feel like we would need to take this to like, announce it if we're going to spend that much money to the general membership. And again, it's a huge amount of our
I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
we know who's.
Right, but like at the same time, East Portland is one of the most diverse
and populous. I know,
in
and
East Portland, and it's weird to me that, we make, this is no criticism to you guys, of course, that, we have the power to involve these people in the decision making, and we don't do it because it's the decision that concerns them too, that concerns ethnic streams. So, the city recognizes that, which is why they make this available to us.
In a fashion.
Right.
Mhm.
In a fashion.
In a fashion.
Passion, but they are willing to pay for it, and they do have, relationships with a bunch of translators. They have them on file that we can access them, so we wouldn't have to do that research. So, it's.
Right, but I'm saying that it would be because we do have so many diverse languages, we would really,
It would be about $1,000, at least $1,000
Well,
per
and
page.
aside from translation, there's other ways to reach people out too. We can share it too. And I don't know of all of them. I know of some, like sharing it at local churches or other community groups like that they can do outreach on our behalf.
My concern, just with that, just because I come from a thing, is if you're giving them information, I really feel strongly like it has to be something that is translated by like a professional translator, because there's a huge difference, even if we give them to churches, the little like pamphlets that you see that are different things, that the like DHS or something, because lots of times when we just have like, family members do translations and stuff, there's lots of stuff lost in the thing, and as a public thing, I just feel like it would be really important that we do it the right way, because there could be issues in the future.
So what I.
So, would that be the kind of thing that we could get, apply for grants for, is to get the translators to do it the right way, since it is expensive?
Well, the kind of translators that we would get reimbursed for would have to be really certified
Right,
ones who
and they're
can
very
do,
expensive.
Legally a really good job. So, and that is something that ONI would pay for, obviously with advance approval. And after we have paid, they would reimburse us for.
Oh.
Yeah, but.
So that there are cases where if we know we're gonna do a big like neighborhood-wide survey on like issues, it's really great to invest in all that translation and put it all out there in 5 or 6 different languages. In the case of a survey like this, where we've got 2 weeks to come up with some feedback to hand over to the county, then we have to look at doing more immediate channels, like going through social media and just putting links up on the website. But at the same time, we need to acknowledge that
It is not.
this is the only language we were able to do this survey in. These were the only places we were able to solicit.
Right, I think that's what Krista was saying, just acknowledging how we conducted the survey.
The other thing is, it's possible that we need to be able to, and I think this should be something that is ongoing, it's just a given with everything we do, is being able to reach the wide variety of communities we've got. And to do that, we probably need somebody who that is what they do. That's all, that's an entire volunteer job in itself, I think.
Well, now, we do have a committee that is, as I understood, although I'm not a member of it, but it was created for that purpose, to include inclusion and diversity. So that, pardon, backwards, sorry. Equity and, okay, sorry, my apology for naming that. So that might be a good place to start with that. But one thing I wanted to add was that we are, we do have some crime statistics that we've been able to, that are official statistics from the city, so if anybody else has access to anything that they can think of, bring that to me or bring it to Jennifer. Also, we would, if possible, we could use some help with the setup and the breakdown of it's gonna be in the gymnasium / cafeteria at the school.
That's what I was gonna ask, just to wrap
It's
this up.
called
What
a
kind of-
cafeteria.
Okay, that sounds somehow sort of like a crematorium or something. It's got to, the cafeteria.
It's a combo cafeteria and.
Anyway,
So, yeah, just to wrap this up, what kind of help do you guys, how can we?
well, that would be one thing. We're gonna have daycare. We're going to have, or childcare, I should say. We're going to. We were talking about having some refreshments. That would be something else that we could use some help with.
Can we
like
maybe
a
just
setup and
do
takedown?
a sign up, like a signup.com and like enter all the jobs in and then people can just sign up for the one.
Well, that actually would be a very good idea.
If you give me a list of the jobs you need done and like
The next couple
the
of days.
time and everything,
And
times
then it
and
will
everything.
circulate amongst board members and we can sign up.
That would
or
be-
What do you think?
It's just a link and you can even just put it up on all the website and everything
Because
and
it
other
doesn't have to
people
even
can
be board
volunteer.
members, it would be, I mean, actually, I think it would be ideal if it isn't board members, if trying to get just more people just to do
Yeah, absolutely.
more stuff in the community.
I've used
Oh,
it
yeah.
for organizing just informal cleanups, just to get people to all show up at the same time and just
That
put
would
a
be
couple
very-
shifts
that
on
would
there
be
and just say
very
we need
helpful.
12 people on
That'd
this
be very
day.
helpful.
Thank you.
I have a question. We have in our budget $110 for each Lents town hall. Would this be a town hall?
I guess you could call it, I mean, we're technically
Because
calling
we
it a
have- we
forum,
have-
but it's
We
not.
also have topic-based community forums, but
That's what this is.
they're only budgeted for $50. So-
And
Because it's
we're not gonna be paying for a facility. We don't have to, we're not paying
Yeah.
money to the school for that, so the
We're
facility,
going through the PTA.
we will be paying a childcare person to care for.
How much do we have for
I
childcare?
think it was $50 is what we've
That's
allocated.
at general membership meetings. So generally, when you got special forums, that's a separately budgeted item, and so it has to go under.
Well, can we
How do you
fudge
do
this
that?
that it's,
We haven't been paying for childcare.
no, we haven't been.
reimbursed several people, no.
You did?
No, we
No.
haven't.
And we haven't gotten any invoices for it.
Well, we've been kind of in a
So-
limbo state.
So have you,
of the-
have you come up with a budget for this particular?
No, we hadn't come up with a budget because so far we were basically, the budget was pretty much,
How many general meetings did we put down for our budget?
11.
11?
was for that's every month.
I mean, not a general meeting, I mean,
Special events, the
We have
$50.
two town
No, the other-
halls
the
and
town-
four
town
community
halls.
forums.
I mean, how many more town halls?
Well, this
do
would
we
be,
think we're
this
gonna
would be,
get by the end of
we're
the-
calling it a forum as opposed to the town hall, but I mean, it's basically the same kind of a meeting, except that we're not gonna be having people come up individually to a microphone and asking questions. We're gonna have them written down, and then myself or Jennifer will read the questions after congregating them and
That doesn't have anything to do with the cost.
no, it doesn't,
What
but
I'm
I'm just
saying
saying
is
as
if we
far as what to
designate this
call it.
As one of the town halls, then we can be, we don't have to go and try to make another line item, we can use.
This
Right,
this
we should
as-
just call
I
it
think
that.
it's a town hall.
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, it just,
Doesn't matter
yeah.
what
For all
purpose,
just
just naming it
Whenever
something
we were
else.
making the budget, we should have said livability committee events, and that would have
Yeah.
been things.
Just
to
called
listen
it
to.
Yeah, that would have been.
Now we
You wanna
know.
change it to that?
Oh, we can do that?
That would be a good idea.
Just combine the two together and just say livability committee events and combine the budgets.
Yeah, livability,
So is-
public safety events, that's what, because it's both, those two things seem to be,
Intertwined.
yeah, the two committees seem to be pretty intertwined. It's hard for one to act without the other. Okay, that is the presentation today.
Thank you. And so next, I believe, is also you.
Oh,
Legal affairs.
okay,
And I think just to clarify what I meant when I put here was, so at the last general meeting that we had at the end of
You
November.
can even just say it. Go for it.
Oh,
Because that's all that it is. Just
so
announce
the
it.
general membership voted that the LNA stop pursuing legal action against the LNLA. And I guess the next step with that, and why I added it to the agenda, was for us to discuss what does that mean for us? What do we do with that? Does that vote in any way, violate any law or anything like that? Because my understanding is that if it doesn't, then we have to follow the result of that vote. So it's just open for discussion.
Here's my thoughts. One is, according to Ray, we are responsible.
This is above my pay grade, that if they're violating that in some way, like then we would go to a legal person saying, do you believe that they're violating it by doing this? But we first need to figure out is if that.
Are
is
there any other
actually-
means to satisfy whatever
Right.
needs to be satisfied?
Thanks, Krista.
So I'm thinking back to that meeting and trying to I want to convey my sense of the intent behind that. So let's focus on the name confusing similarity issue. And the issue of the community saying this group is being tied up in a world of conflict and in pursuing, sort of fighting against this other group in our neighborhood. And that's tying up our resources, it's tying up our energy in a way that doesn't serve the community. And so what my interpretation, I'm curious what others heard, of the intent of Nick's proposal is to stop that whole sort of making those community members, those members of the Lents Neighborhood Association who basically feel excluded and alienated from the formal organization, to stop going after them, to stop aggression towards them, to sort of.
Okay, you just did it, but the confusion, you just called them the Lents Neighborhood Association, sorry.
No, I meant what I said. That these people are members of the Lents community.
Yes, they are part
members of the neighborhood. They're the people who come to our meetings. They're the people who fill the room when we sit down in a general membership.
Well, there's some of that group. I wouldn't say they fill the room. I think you're exaggerating.
But I'm saying these are members of our community.
They are a portion of the membership.
And I'm interpreting the intent of that proposal not so much as focused just on this name, but saying let's have the board stop going after these folks.
And actually,
Okay, one thought on this is, an update on the status of that, not talking about pursuing legal advice or anything. The reality of the confusion that we were trying to end is going on to this day, to yesterday, when I spoke to the district attorneys, communicating with them through email. They don't know the difference, and they've been told so many times. I believe that Kelly Burris is attending a meeting of the LNLA tonight. She thought she was coming to our meeting, okay? So the reality that this confusion exists in the city is real. People can say, oh, it's not real, they need to get it straight. Well, they haven't got it straight. And we hear that. Jennifer, this has made her insane. This is one of the reasons why she's so irate, is that because every time she writes a letter to anybody, whether it's just about ODOT or anything, they get mixed. Who are we talking about? They think they are dealing with the Lents Neighborhood Association when they are dealing with the group that doesn't have to abide by any of the things that we have to abide by: open meetings, publish agendas, publish minutes, vote on board members. Your emails are publicly accessible. Film your meetings.
Open meetings.
Open meetings. That is something that is, every time we try and reach out to the city, to the county, to the state, we have to go through that. So yes, you can say, well, it's, we can just kind of lay off this, except that we are still having to deal with it, and to deal with things when they published their lovely version of the 12 Days of Christmas. We were contacted because it was assumed that we had done that, the Lents Neighborhood Association.
Even though the Willamette
even though
didn't say that.
even though it was not actually said. So this is something that is, you can say, oh, you guys are making it, but it's real, it's happening all the time. We're still running into it. It hasn't abated at all that I can see. In fact, it's even picked up, and we've been accused of some pretty nasty stuff that we didn't have anything to do with. And then we have to stop, write emails, oh, no, you're wrong. So we spend a lot of time doing cleanup, trying to get this straightened out. And to me, that is a huge waste of time. I am tired of doing that, having to go back and say, no, that isn't us. We didn't
And
do that.
energy.
We don't publish that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's my, I mean, this is a pet peeve of mine now, because I have to deal with it on a daily basis, just about.
So in case it makes any difference, you know, Nick was the one who initiated this motion, so I kind of anticipated there might be confusion over what the intent, his intent was, and also what he was asking. So I reached out to him and I asked him to provide a statement about why he did that and what he meant by it, and I'm happy to forward this email to everyone. You know, it's kind of long and it's the good things that we do. He, you know, acknowledges that, you know, he was on the board. This is a former chair, so Nick Christian said. So you guys can read about all that. But the points that are key to his letter are that, you know, so when public safety chair gave her report on the possibility of legal action against the LNLA, I was really surprised. This did not sound like the kind of activity that the general membership was briefed on. It sounded like a significant action that was being pursued by a handful of board members without input from the membership at large. Just as importantly, that legal action was being pursued against sitting members of the LNA itself. And then he says, the members of the LNLA are, by and large, members of the LNA. Any effort to take legal action against the LNA's own members is a very, very serious discussion that should take place with the entire community, not just the board. That was the logic behind my motion. If board members think the LNA should pursue a legal case, they take slow steps with the blessing of and regular updates to the general membership. So he ends by saying, the more divided we are about how we should treat each other, the harder time we will have getting City Hall to take us seriously on the issues we all agree on, like reducing homelessness, improving cleanliness and livability, and confronting crime. And he thanks us all for our service to the community. And he recognizes that the public safety chair and everyone else, you know, they have the best interest of the community at heart.
Yeah, but it's like the thing is, it's about, we're not, he seems to feel that we're saying that we are pursuing legal action against them.
But in
we're
his
not.
motion, he says that, you know, we don't pursue legal action, but that we also stop any efforts in that direction because he feels like it's a
dividing.
waste. It's divisive and it's a waste of the resources that, you know, we have available.
Is that part of the motion?
That's what I heard. I mean, we can rewatch the video, but yes, he said, he clarified that we stop pursuing legal action or any other activity that's taking up our resources.
Like clarifying to over and over and over and over and over again to when there's confusion. Aren't we attending your meeting? I mean, we have to do that. We can't just go, I don't know what you're talking about. We have to do it. So you're just stuck in this,
Well, let me-
I've written this email again and again and again. I mean, really, it's,
I
understand
think
it's frustrating.
I think that the intent of the motion was clear, but I think that what is unclear to the general membership is how much time doing this clarification is taking. And so I think that we need to document that so that they understand the resources that are being used, constantly having to clarify, you know, this is us, this isn't, you know, this did not come from the Lents Neighborhood Association, or this, you know, we are the Lents Neighborhood Association, so that it's clear that this is an ongoing issue and that it is taking resources to do that. You know, whether the resources are in pursuit of trying to clarify the situation over and over and over again, and that's going to be until one or the other groups either dissolve or change their name. It's just going to be an ongoing issue. Or I don't know what is the other or on that is.
Or we could also
Can we
just,
change our names?
That's
Yeah, I'll be Deborah.
The thing about that is, one of the reasons why the Lents Neighborhood Association changed its name from Surge was because...
S-U-R-G-E, Surge?
S-U-R-G-E, yes. It was Southeast Urban Rejuvenation Growth and Endeavor. A horrible name. But in any case, and in fact...
I love it.
I actually like that.
Well, it's horrible in that it doesn't describe who we are, really. You know, we are a And given that the city has a neighborhood association program, a neighborhood program that recognizes neighborhood associations, it was felt that having a name that was consistent with the program that is our primary funder and support, that we adopt a name along those lines. In fact, before it was that, it was Southeast Uplift Rejuvenation, Growth, and Endeavor. Before Southeast Uplift Neighborhood Program existed.
Became Southeast, okay.
But because the Lents Neighborhood Association wanted to receive services from Southeast Uplift, it was a good idea to change our name so that it was not confused with their name. So it's.
Sorry, I just have to mention that we're kind of going a little over time with this, so maybe in the interest of the agenda, we could just discuss now what we think the next steps could be.
I'd just like to say one thing, which is that it's more than just the time we spend dealing with this. It's also what people out of the community actually believe, who is doing what, and what they feel and they could do about stuff. Because for every person that does write in a criticism and a mistaken criticism, there's probably plenty who don't bother writing and responding, who believe it.
Could we keep track of who is that, how many people are actually reaching out that they're confused, so that we know if we're talking 10, 20, or 100, or
Well, I think
1,000, or...
I think
That's
that
gonna be-
there's a scope of there's a different, I mean, not that it should be, but there's a difference between a person in the neighborhood thinking it's different and the mayor thinking that he's going to the wrong group. But I just want some clarity, like after reading Nick's thing, is that this is the entire thing of what I've been saying about the email is everything has become personalized. Like instead of him saying that you're going after the infringement of a copyright, like a name, right, which is what it is that you're going after the individuals of our group, which is because of the problems people have had individually with each other, because certain people are associated with this group. They are not the group. Their group is, I think, like 200 people or something. Those 4 people aren't the group. And so when he says that, to me, it's not acknowledging that it's not about those 4 or 5 people that, kind of always say yes when the other group says no. It's about the fact that it's literally around the name, that it is causing confusion, that there has been, and I know this because I deal with accounting, that there is confusion about
And the actions of the group also, though. It's both. It's not only the name, it's things that group does, then falls on us.
But that's, regardless of anything, of what it happens, even if they were literally bakers who sold cookies, it would be confusing if people thought we were bakers that were selling cookies rather than what we do. Again, it just becomes so personalized rather than, I can't read that one.
It says I have a proposal. Go ahead.
My proposal is this. It's that the board understand that our role in terms of the whole framework of neighborhood associations is not to help the community, but it's to empower the community, it's to empower the citizens to participate in government. That's the whole reason for us to exist. If we're not doing that, we should hang it up. So I recommend that we think about that aspect of Nick's proposal. If there's a desire to continue addressing the name confusion, that we think about it in terms of people can gather whatever information they want, and that more and more with issues, it's go back to the community, go back to the larger general membership, say, we as a board are thinking about this, we want to make sure that we're following the direction of the community. As opposed to this group thinking sort of board members as executive agents.
So I want to ask a clarifying question about that. So are you saying that maybe now, we take it back to the community through a general meeting, and we can even say, like, we would just like to clarify kind of our position and why we chose to do this, and also to clarify some of the issues that we've had, and kind of ask for the community's input?
What I would do is take the whole discussion of legal advice or legal action out of it and just say, we are having significant problems helping you connect and representing you with other city, county, regional, state agencies, because of the confusion between these two names. We're asking you for advice on what you think we should do
And if they
to help clear up this confusion.
Okay. So that would be our next step then?
And that's all we need to
So
do.
we can add it on the general.
There is
So-
one thing we need to do, is we need to talk to East Portland neighbors, because LNLA has asked to, Ray knows more about it, be
Yeah. it's
part of that
Sponsor.
coalition.
For fundraising purposes.
Yeah, and they're holding off on doing anything with that until they hear from us. So we might need to ask them about that too, so.
Jason?
I forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh, no, I've got something to say.
Oh, I think you were
Um,
gonna say you know what he wanted to say.
I forgot
Oh,
what
no,
I was gonna say. Since
no, if you
guys
come up
take
with it, that's cool.
You took
I'm
it to
sorry.
two different places, and it was like I had something. So you're asking for us to start working together as a people, right? And so my idea went to also just having some transparency and inviting people just to a general meeting. That's kind of what I wanted to do last month, was invite people to a general meeting, but it turned into something totally, I don't know, something outside of what I wanted to do. But it sounds like transparency is what we really need. Like, I like what you said something about, it's not the people, it's the name. You know, we don't really have anything against those people. I really don't know who they are. I thought they were people who didn't get voted into this board by this neighborhood.
There are
That's all I know.
some of them are.
And so, my only issue is that these people, they're doing what they want to do. We can't control that. It's, what we want to do is control their name. You know, and I honestly don't have a personal opinion on it, other than that, since I've been involved with you guys, this is what we talk about.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I-
exactly what I want to
So
say,
this is-
and that's why I voted
And it's also just not
affirmative that
a
we
unique
needed to
situation, like if you look at all the groups and all the coalitions in East Portland, we all pretty much have the same, you know, words in our names. They're just kind of like EPN and EPNO, you know.
I think that's
the
confusing.
neighbors and
that is
Portland neighborhood
confusing. That's
office. Yeah, but they're not
confusing.
going after each other or
But
asking
nobody
each other.
This is
confuses
about going after
Montevilla
each other.
and
This is
Lents,
about the
okay?
name,
That's
like you
not,
said.
there's no confusion. They don't think, oh, you guys are Brentwood, Darlington. No, nobody makes that mistake. That's a different neighborhood. You're Powell, Gilchrist, whatever. Foster Powell. You're not the same, they know we're not the same neighborhood. This has become, I mean, to the point like where we are, we're being, if they do something that is, as I use the example of the 12 Days of Christmas poem that then got published in the Willamette Week, and it was assumed that it came from us.
And that's despite the fact that Willamette, we got it right.
Right.
It was LNLA.
Right.
Well, you know what,
So-
I dealt with the majority of the backlash from that, just because I happened to be plugged into social media during that period of time. And I saw it come through the advocacy channels and all of that stuff. And what I will say is that all we have to do is step up and say, that wasn't us, and we will not be held accountable
And
for
that's
this.
what my point is.
And-
I-
Just reiterating
From,
that.
from
Yeah.
Jump Street, I think I said it from the first meeting I was at.
Who wants to be in
I
charge
think-
of writing all those emails instead of me?
I'll do it. I'll do it. Like, to me, it's not that, I think that what you're saying is 100% correct. The more we're out there, the more we get known for it. Just like the same way that everybody knows Jennifer, Jennifer's all over. Like, people know who she is, people know Cora. Like, to me, that's what we need to be, rather than something like what I see LNA. I do see a lot of vitriol, but I also see people who are doing things. And that's what I'm saying that we're not getting to do. We're spending time with things, we're not doing things. And I want to be, that's the reason why I agreed to do it, is to be a person who's doing things. And exactly what you said is, we are opening up to make other people know that there's opportunities to improve our neighborhood. Like, and I want there to be more committees. I do want us to have like an oversight if we're going to be approving those committees. But like, my dream would have been is change their name just because we have a livability committee that's already, and that they would set a thing that would be under a name, and they could be a committee underneath us. Like, that would be my ideal dream, but I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen. But to me, that is something that is again, I know probably because of the personalities and whatever, but to me, that would be what I would think would be better to move forward, is how do we get them to want to be part of us? And they're gonna have to have some more oversight than what they have right now if they were to do that. But to me, that's something that would be more feasible to me than to try to continue to buck up against this wall when there's so many other things we could be doing. Number one is, which is at the top of my list, which is getting our bylaws changed in line with other LNAs, because I didn't mind doing it, but if we get 10 more of those things, it's like a week process to like answer
You mean the
those.
grievances?
Yeah, to answer those, and as Paul said, other neighborhood associations get 1 grievance per year on average. And we are getting,
Not many.
yeah.
Okay, so I hear you say that, and so we talk about, just to kind of wrap this up, possible next step, bring this, if one of you requests it, bring it again to the general membership, frame it more like Cora said, and invite more discussion, possibly more support from community members too, if they feel the same.
I don't agree with that. I think that the spirit of that motion was that we not spend any more time talking about this at board meetings or at meetings. Talking about the LNLA has just, it's dominated meetings since they started coming around. It's all this neighborhood association's done. That's not why I volunteer.
Well, it's not why I volunteer either, but I've had to deal with it. So, I mean, it
Well,
sounds
I
like
have
it's
to deal
my
with it
cause
every
celeb, and
meeting.
it's not. It just, well, you do, but you don't deal with it during the week when you're not here, do you? Are you writing letters to people and saying, no, it's not us? Do you get that
I don't
back?
have to. People
Well, I
know who the LNLA is as soon as they get them confused. They get
Well,
corrected.
that's just not true. They
It's
don't. That sounds good. I had the city
Who
attorney
still
told me
thinks
that.
that the Lents Neighborhood Livability Association is the Lents Neighborhood Association?
Well, we can start with the district attorney.
you can't figure it out. Or she, they
Okay,
They don't,
well,
they think
they think they're dealing with
I'm
one.
saying
and
that-
they went to law school. I think
Well,
they can figure
you know,
out the
I
difference
know that
between
sounds
one
all well and
organization
good. I
and
know it
another.
sounds all well and good and simple, and I think it should be that way, but that's not the reality that we run into out there when we're out there dealing with people, okay? And so there's so much backtracking as we're trying to get like this town hall forum together. There's, oh my gosh. Anyway, I don't want this to be what I spend all my
So-
time on, folks.
what
I mean, I think it's sort of like gotten like, well, that's Joe's issue. No, it's not my issue, but I've ended up having to deal with it. And so, yes, I'm like, I would like us to be able to do something else. But then you turn around and, oh my gosh, now there's this poem that's been published that we are now accused of it being us. And so we have to,
Who's accusing us of writing terrible poems?
I mean, it was a kind of
it was,
a thing where the homeless communities felt like we were going after them. And they really did think it was the LNA that was going, I mean, I worked
More
in
than that,
I worked in homeless services, it was a pretty big deal.
People felt that it wasn't just that, they also were, a lot of people were expressing that it was the people of Lents, and that
Yeah.
represented the people.
this is
of
how the
Lents.
lentils feel about the rest of about the situation. So I mean, I wish
Well,
that
then
it
it sounds
wasn't
like-
the case that it was that it was something that we could just say, oh, it's just this abstract, it's just the name. Well, it's not, it's more than the name, it's the actions of the group, whether you want to put an individual name on who
I don't
wrote
know.
this or who wrote that.
I think
Can
if
do-
we
sorry,
spent
Can
more-
we do a quick poll to see how many members on the board still believe, after the result of that vote, that we should keep spending time on this? Is
That that doesn't make sense, because I still have to spend time on it, because I'm still going to be getting
I
correspondence that
second the motion.
is erroneous.
So,
Okay, well, I just want to say, we're all going to end up spending time on it anytime we encounter a case where we have to correct it. But I'm practicing like Aikido with this. Like, if someone pushes me, I let their force just let them move in other directions. So, and so that's what I've discovered. I kind of, over the course of dealing with the infamous poem, discovered that we actually got a lot of traction by being able to have to get out there in more open forums and say, that's not us. That's not us. And so now we have this whole advocacy community that's had a whole 2 weeks to stew on the fact that there are two different things and they've been mixing us up. And I think it had a positive effect. I know it's a lot of work, but I think eventually at some point, if we just keep the mute button on having to, the bad aspects of it and just use it, look at it more as an opportunity to do positive publicity for ourselves, then it makes the work seem a little more worthwhile.
Use it to turn
Of
it
doing
around.
that and hope that the work lessens as it goes along. It was great, like, yeah, some of the people I talked with are just people in the homeless community or people I work with that are in human services, and they're like, and I'm like, that's not us. Same with the shelter protests that they're organizing. People are like rightfully like, gosh, that's kind of, not
That you're
cool
outside
that
of
they're
the-
coming into this other neighborhood and getting involved. We have our own positions on things, but it's just like we feel like they're kind of taking over our thing. But at the same time, we've also had those other neighborhoods reaching out to us, and we're getting good partnerships going of moving forward in a more positive direction on finding the right solution for that particular project. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's not that we're not going to deal with it. I think we just need to, the way we need to look at how we're dealing with it is not trying to solve a problem, but trying to turn a problem into an asset.
Like that.
Well, I like that idea.
Well,
That's good.
that's,
Thank you.
but I do think.
I
that
know.
It is informative to the general membership to let them know all of the times we have to do that. So that,
Sure.
So that, that way they know that it's an ongoing issue that is taking
just
time and.
Fold it into our reports.
And what about like just sitting down with the LNA and discussing ways that they might want to cooperate with us on that? Because they've already kind of, in some places, made that clear, like we are not associated with the LNA. And like maybe if we have further discussions with them, they might be willing to do that more. I don't know. My understanding is that they're not willing to change their name. So, but what are they willing to do to maybe work with us, considering that they are a part of the LNA?
No, they aren't. As the LNLA, they are not part of it.
Well, no, but
As individuals,
as
they are.
individuals, yeah, they are a part, and they might want to work with us on that.
I still think that, yeah, just from an advertising perspective, if you can't change the name, we change the logo to something very bright and colorful. They have they use the little like very cursive writing. If you, just like when you send a document, if it has something that becomes, associated with us. I mean, there's other ways
Yes.
around it. I'm just saying,
Right,
there's other ways around that we could be doing things rather than trying to get someone to change. I constantly now thinking of George Costanza trying to convince his future brother and sister-in-law to not name their child Seven because he's told them that he wants to name the child Seven. Like, you're not going to get them to change their name. You can do something different, rather than trying to. I don't believe they're going to change their name. So why don't we think of other ways if we do think that we can make ourselves known by maybe a brighter logo or a certain font or something, you know what I mean?
Maybe that's we can do the reframing thing again. Like, hey, there's a lot of confusion about these names. That's what I was saying. What do you think we should do? And then we can offer maybe a menu. Like, hey, let's
Change our
get a new
name.
logo. Let's
Okay, so you're saying do that at the.
ask the general membership
Okay,
that.
Who would like to take on that item?
I'll do it. I'll do it. Sure.
Okay,
Thank you, Clara.
so.
Because again,
But as long as it's not portrayed after the meeting by anybody, and if you see anybody doing it, as me going after them, because that is not the intent at all.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with generating good publicity for this organization, getting people tied in and connected, and getting them connected with the good work that we do.
Yeah, possibly good
So-
publicity for the LNLA too, so
Yeah.
that they don't continue to be portrayed as someone against us.
the anti-LNA,
Right,
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Okay,
That's
so.
kind of what they're about, though, a lot of what they're about.
or
Well, I'm
they-
sure they wouldn't want to be confused with us either.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. I
Okay,
think that
so-
there was some intent with,
There's
when they
intent
chose
there.
their name,
Yeah,
that was
sure.
why they chose
Sure,
their name the way they
but
did.
things may have changed in the meantime.
Well,
So-
you'll have to convince me of that. At this point, I have seen no evidence that they
Okay.
have any intent of doing anything but continuing their individual
I disagree
paths.
What do
with
they-
that,
what do
but
they
I
say
think
out in
we also just
Missouri?
need
Show
to
me.
move on at this
Yeah,
point.
show me.
I think we made some good progress on that, and we need to move on to the treasurer's report. And there were 3 things with that. I'll just update everyone on I'll let you talk about everything, but I just wanted, the insurance item was something that I wanted to update everyone on because I worked on it, and so we are once again insured.
Okay.
So we're.
So I can break
member
my leg
of
at this
the,
meeting, we're good.
With the
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, and I have this form for you. Wait, where is it? This, right? I'm supposed to turn this into you, Cora, you sent me this?
We just need to mail it to the Secretary of State, so it needs to be signed and mailed to the Secretary of State. It's, I believe it's correctly filled out,
Okay.
so it
And
just needs your
who-
signature at the bottom.
Okay, so who mails this? Who do I give this to?
I can drop it in the mail
All
if
right.
you want me to.
Okay.
You sign
So-
emails.
So is that to change who the officers
Yeah,
are?
are our checks clear?
No, I just gave
Yeah,
Sabina her
okay.
check.
I'll deposit that.
So as soon
Okay.
as her check clears,
Just shoot me a text when you're done.
that way we don't have this thing.
Yeah,
You know,
gotcha.
the wrong check signer on.
That's a big deal.
And it's, I don't know how long our note in the bank file lasts, so there might be a second step of us going back after
Okay.
those records are official and going back through that process again, but it was quick.
So what is this form again?
It is to change the corporate contacts that are listed in the Secretary of State registry. Every time we go to the bank to change signatories is a different process. So this time they wouldn't do it even though we had all of the previous signers there.
Okay, so this is the bank signature.
They won't do it.
item?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's for bank
Okay, so I'm turning this in
signatories.
signed and
Yeah.
to
And
Cora.
don't set
Yes.
contact
Do I have to
when you
date it?
cash the check.
Doesn't have a date
Signature.
spot, just says
Really?
printed name title.
I can just add a date just to.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't have a spot for one, so I don't think they care, but.
It could be done at any point. I'll just date it.
So that's bank signatories and insurance, so that's taken care of. Why don't I do the regular report and then we'll get into the 2018 budget. So in checking, we have $454.26. In savings, we have $10,844.37 for a total of $11,298.63. Since our last board meeting in November, in the savings, we've had an interest income of 47 cents on December 31st, and also another interest income of 47 cents on November 30th. I also transferred $500 from savings into checking to cover our checks that were going out. I just gave, so let's see, I just paid for the printer ink, now this is out of checking, $65.99. And then for the transportation of the public address system and also the certified mail, $105.04. And I had payments of $62.05 and $78.50 to Portland General Electric. And of course, the transfer from savings into checking of $500. Right now, I don't know what the accounts payable are for Portland General Electric because I haven't received the bills yet. So that is it for just the accounts. Are there any questions? Just
I'll try to pick them up tomorrow and bring them to the meeting on Saturday.
Sorry, I have a question. With a balance of $11,000,
Like Advantis Credit Union, for example, has an interest rate in their checking account of 1.75%. I just, unless my math is wrong, I was calculating that as $2,000 over, but that seems off. It must be 200.
It's more like 200.
$200.
So $200. So what you were talking about seems like it's $1 a month or 50 cents a month. And I'm just wondering if there's ways of,
it's been 40 to 50 cents a month. It kind of varies a little bit.
so like $6 versus 200, just throwing it in a bank account that would bear interest. Wondering if that's everything.
Well, I think 1.5 on 10,000 would come out to around $12.50 a year. I mean, a month.
Well, it's not per month, that's per year. They
Yeah,
give you
per
the
year.
year figure, so you
Yeah.
gotta divide that by 12.
And then multiply it.
Then multiply by 12, right, but to figure out your monthly, it sounds like you're talking about monthly, but it's really yearly, so.
That means,
It's a pain in the ass.
doing all this stuff again to me moving the account. We had
Maybe next year, I just wanted to throw that out there, that if there's room.
And I'm not sure if that's
Invested.
available to
It's $187.
corporations or if that's just for individuals, it's hard to know.
Yeah.
You'd have to get a bunch of details.
There's community bank account plans and stuff, so that's what we end up with, and I don't know.
Yeah.
One thing we were talking about is moving which branch, because right now we have to go to Clackamas County, down off of Johnson Creek branch, and the one that's up, we're at Unitas right now. The one that's up at Mall 205 is actually, from a transit standpoint, probably a little more accessible. So, that's just,
I think that for me on my bicycle, it's about the same.
yeah.
Yeah, because either way, I get on the 205 bike path.
Yeah.
Probably fewer homeless people
But
going
it's
north
just
and
a-
south. but-
It's no, there's
Other
not.
than that.
Not at the
Believe
moment.
me, there's not, no.
I don't know, I get on that path a lot. It seems like there's a lot going south, but that's,
Well, I just,
yeah.
Yeah.
Until you hit the Clackamas County border. then-
That's because the sheriff removes them all, yes.
Is there any advantage to choosing a bank that's in Lents? Then, but
Well,
that's in Lents,
We were at Wells Fargo, and there was an effort to move it to a more community-oriented institution. And all of the banks in Lents are like Bank of America, Wells Fargo,
banks.
Well,
US Bank.
what spurred it is that Wells Fargo branch cashed a stolen check that was stolen from the chair's mailbox.
No kidding.
And so that's what spurred it, was like, dude,
Yeah.
we're in here all the time, and you cashed it for just some random person that came in off the
And
street.
it was a check
so-
from Walmart.
Yeah, it was a big check for like the movies in the park, so
Yeah,
it was
I
like
think
$1,000.
$1,000.
So,
They ended up covering it,
Yeah.
but still the previous chair, and we have to go back to 3 chairs?
3 chairs.
3 chairs now. That really irked him, as you can imagine. And of
It
course,
would irk me,
and although I have to say, just from a point of view, I never put in my mailbox an outgoing mail anything that,
it was an incoming check though, it was mailed from Walmart to him, so they mailed it to him.
so, oh, I see. So somebody just grabbed it out of his
Yeah.
mailbox? Okay. Because I thought he was forwarding it to the East Portland neighborhood office or something.
I'd like to make a motion
Yeah.
that we allow the treasurer and chair to move our account to another bank with a higher interest-bearing checking account if they find the time to do so.
But there's also
Okay, well,
accessibility involved.
And they feel like it. They think it's a good idea.
If you wanna.
So it's basically authorizing it but not requiring it.
Absolutely.
I'm good with that, woo!
All right.
It's just business,
Okay, cool. Next item.
Are we done with this?
Yeah.
Okay, on that, now there's the 2018 budget. As you know, it is our normal practice to adopt a budget in our October board meeting, which is immediately after our elections. And for the neighborhood allotment, we're required to have the budget in that office by a certain date. I think it's normally the 15th of October,
Yeah.
which is only a few days after our board meeting. But I think this year it was the 16th because that was on a Sunday, something like that. Anyway, prior to our board meeting, I had called the executive director of the East Portland neighborhood office and asked him some questions about the neighborhood allotment. By the time of our meeting, I hadn't heard anything back. Also, after our meeting, I did what I did last year.
You mean the October meeting?
Yeah, the October meeting. I did what I did last year. I went onto the website to download the necessary forms and everything, and I was just going to do a quick cut and paste because most of the information was already available on our old form. Unfortunately, all of the forms on the website, and even the last time I looked at it last week, was from the prior year. All of the information on the website was for the prior year. So I wasn't sure what to do with that. But it has been my experience in dealing with the East Portland Neighborhood Office and Southeast Uplift before that, when you have a phone call with a program question in it, you get a call back. I never got a call back. Unfortunately, I went on to deal with some other things in my family, like I was delaying filling out all the paperwork for the low-income energy assistance program and so on. So I was waiting for a call. Unfortunately, then the deadline went past. And I understand that, Sabina, you must have been contacted.
Well, I was told by Victor that, we didn't get he notified me that we didn't get our budget. I actually happened to be in the office soon after the deadline passed because I was there to talk about, I just had questions as the new chair, and I asked specifically if we could have the film screening and all that, and if there's a budget for that, and he said, oh yes, on that note, we haven't received anything from you guys, and I had a copy of what you had submitted to us as the budget from the previous year.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, well, I have this with me, and I said the neighborhood association seems to think that this would be okay. I just wanted to clarify with you guys if it would, and he said, oh, I can take that from you. I can take a copy of that old budget because I'm sure it hasn't changed much. Just
didn't.
right.
We had like
but he said, but if the
2 lines.
deadline has passed, but I can take that just just to have.
For the loss of these funds, and and since it really was a situation where it was the office using email, which was a less than ideal way of communicating to the two people that they communicated with. I felt that at the very least I should simply offer my resignation for this board, because I felt last year pretty good about, I was concerned about not having the access to the email, but because the information was available on the EPNO website, I felt pretty good. I was able to do everything that needed to be done, including all of the information in the spring that they need in order for us to get our reimbursement. But this time, the only way they communicated this, apparently, was through email. And that is not the way to communicate with me, and we all know how that worked with our previous chair, or didn't work, I should say.
Well, she was also not functioning as the chair in August. So I don't know that she would have felt an obligation to inform anybody that she received that email either.
So if the board wants, I will, I'm ready to submit my resignation as treasurer of the Lents Neighborhood Association, because, if the East Portland Neighborhood Office is going to be communicating pretty much only by email, then I should not be the treasurer.
Jason?
All mistakes can be forgiven, but I think that the 2 months that we took off was really unnecessary. I'll keep saying that as long as I'm part of this, that we took too much time off. I think if we were consistent monthly, that, we could have avoided this. Nobody's gonna ask you to resign. I don't think you should have.
I don't know, maybe at the general membership meeting, they're going to be asking me to resign.
This is why you had your hand up for a while.
Want you out of here. I think that an alternative could be that we think about how can we make sure that this doesn't happen in the future. And one idea would be, do we have a Gmail account? Is that what we use for the general account? So if we were to either through the email or through a calendar event, sort of identify what are the key deadlines, what are the deliverables, when do they have to happen.
Which is something a secretary could work on, maybe.
Yeah, that would, and also communicating with if there's offices that are communicating via email, and that doesn't work for you, to figure out an alternative way of those communications.
Well, I mean,
to someone else.
I can send the East Portland Neighborhood Office a letter requesting that all communication, official communication with me would be by U.S. Postal Service or telephone call.
Yeah.
Because that's.
And I think
And-
that's
and-
something
and then-
they might be
And
looking at.
that,
That's
and
legit.
and under the, well, at least for meetings, under the public meetings policy and the standards for neighborhood offices, they would have to comply.
How were they contacting you last year?
Well, actually, I had a lot of discussions with the previous executive director. Last year I was winding down some other things that I was working, and I had heard from folks that, yes, we're supposed to submit a budget by a particular year and particular date, and it was on their updated website. They didn't update their website this
So
time.
that's not your fault.
Well, that's not my fault, but when I actually finally did a search through August, I found an email from Carrie Koch on August 23rd that had all of the new documentation that was necessary for,
That I think was inappropriate too, though, because we do have the one email for the neighborhood association.
The one
and you
point
would
of
think
contact
something
for the
as
city.
important as required documents would be sent to.
And maybe that's what we need
The
to
main
say, is that
contact.
we need, because
They can
the
email-
positions change and it's different people, it does definitely needs to go to our general
right.
Lents.
Yeah.
I think they can know
And
that.
speaking of positions changing, I think maybe doing the budget on the first meeting that we have after the new
Elections.
after the elections.
Well, isn't that what we did?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not,
we-
he's saying.
He's saying-
Yeah,
I agree with that.
but I just, yeah, it seems like a problem to me.
Oh,
like,
okay, I see.
Whenever we get a new treasurer next year, the first thing they're gonna do is make the new budget for the next year.
So should it be done the
August.
time before?
By the
That'll
old
Have to be
board?
August
And
then.
that's what I mean,
well, it would be
before.
at our September meeting.
Well, that shouldn't meeting.
Is there
Well, no,
anything
there's
that
really
makes
not
us
a- we don't have a board
have the
meeting in
elections in
We
September?
wouldn't have had the information necessary to be able to submit the budget.
Oh, it would,
until-
okay.
Until our September board meeting.
Also, with the new
Um,
board, there might be a different set of values and priorities, and that composition of the board might influence what that budget is.
And
So
that's
that
the
would
reason
be-
why we always did it after the election.
So could we change the elections
Yeah.
to August maybe?
Or
Instead of
even, or
September?
later?
That would require
Because-
bylaws change, so we'd have to.
All the NNAs are not having their elections in September. I don't think there's a real reason we have to do it in September.
Well, we have to
Our
go and change
bylaws.
the bylaws.
Right.
By the way, the East Portland Neighborhood Office does have a kind of a listing calendar of when different things are due during a typical year, and that's on their website. So they do have that. And so we can start with that, I suppose. And just add our neighborhood elections and things that are particular to us to that calendar. Well, I mean, it is the primary funding that we get every year, is the neighborhood election.
I'd like to make a motion that we don't try to make him resign because of this.
Yeah, right, I agree.
I second.
Vote.
Sparkle fingers.
Well, I'm going to abstain.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also hear you say that potentially this causes a hardship for you and your situation at home, so I want to also respect that. If you are feeling, we don't think you should resign, and we think errors happen and there were potentially errors on several people's part, but at the same time, if having to deal with this business is only adding to your hardship at home, we can respect that as well and make accommodations for you if you feel this isn't something that you are willing to take on anymore.
I deeply respect the integrity that's implied by you basically saying, hey guys, I screwed up, this is significant, and I'm gonna, just a basic response, I'm gonna offer to resign to the community. I think that's the integrity that's standard in these kinds of things. I'm also equally happy to see people saying, no, not encouraged. That you're a valuable member of the board and of the neighborhood association of the community, with a broad sense of respect. When I talk to community members, I hear a lot of respect for you as a person, as a member of the community, as a leader, and I hear that from city staff. I think there's that appreciation, and so.
Well, I am writing an article for the East Portland Neighborhood Association News, talking about this issue. Unfortunately, I haven't even gotten to my experience with the East Portland Neighborhood Office, and it's over 800 words, so I have to really cut that back. The first part of the article explains the situation for low-income individuals that don't have internet subscriptions, either on their telephone or their smartphone, and what that is like. And then, of course, I was going to give some examples, which includes the example that I just told you tonight, where one phone call or updating a website wouldn't have been an issue.
I just want to reiterate my offer that if you ever need to use a computer for more than an hour, you are welcome to come over to my house.
The thing is I don't feel comfortable coming over every day and doing
I'm
that
just
kind
saying,
of thing.
if you
Because
ever
that's what
need
it really takes in order to keep up with our emails, is to be able to do that every day.
Well, let's
For
try.
any reason, not just for neighborhoods.
Honestly, I haven't read most of my emails for a while now, because
Well,
it's just not
good
possible.
for you.
Yeah.
Perhaps I will be moving over to.
I do find it ironic, though, that the executive director of the East Portland Neighborhood Office at one point sent us an email, and I only saw it because our former secretary gave me a call and said, you need to see this email, that said that he couldn't keep up with all of the emails being generated by the Lents Neighborhood Association in relation to the mediation that we were doing, and if he couldn't keep up as a staff member with a full internet connection, I don't see how someone who has to go to the library and
Or who is a volunteer.
get in
Yeah.
line and take care of the things they have to for their family, and then with whatever time's left, take a look.
And honestly, I probably have only read about 25% of the emails generated in the last week, because I've been writing. I write for a living, and reading even more after reading like a 500-page, legislative rules proposal, and then writing for 4 hours. Even if I do get to reading it, I don't even feel like writing 2 paragraphs to respond to it. So that's.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
rarely respond.
I hear you and I see you, folks, but when I go dark, believe me, it's.
So the email that I
Absolutely.
sent about the insurance, I actually drafted that on my computer at home.
You wrote it, I didn't get an email from you.
Well,
Yeah, I got it.
I think I
I
sent
see it
it to
there.
her. But anyway, see, not everybody.
When did you send it?
It was
It was recently.
Last
About the
week.
insurance, about our insurance dropping.
Yeah.
I
So
heard
I
about it,
filled
but I
out
didn't-
those forms and then.
Yeah, and I attached the forms.
So
And
you
I-
just use like a jump drive to
Yeah.
take it? Yeah.
Well, actually, I used it because I don't want it to transfer viruses to my computer that can no longer be updated or virus protect. I use an SD card and lock it. And then I take a card reader and put that into the computer at the library.
That's some high tech.
Well, that's,
Trying to protect your stuff.
yeah, I gotta protect, because, it may not be that great of a computer, but it's the only one that I've got that's working and has a USB drive. I got some really old ones that got floppy disk drives. but-
So at this point, to bring up that, it is 8 o'clock, and in the interest of other people who might be on might be on a tight schedule, or the new people who are here and don't know what to expect, how much more time do we want to commit tonight, just to kind of, be on the same page? Do we want to say another half an hour?
We'll
Or-
say that.
Say half an hour, okay, so I think that the discussion and action items, I actually anticipate those to go fairly quickly, and we did have really important things to talk about in this first part of the meeting, so I don't think we wasted time, but just to kind of gives people an expectation. So I'll do the next report, communication committee. So we had a film screening, and it was pretty good. It happened at Kelly Elementary, and there were about 40 people in attendance. Kelly Elementary really came through for that. Rebecca Benford really went above and beyond to help us, and in advance and on the day of, she was like personally there at 4 p.m. and helped up until 9 p.m. And I think it was successful. You know, it was a good partnership with Kelly, and it was a good partnership with Family Forward. They're a good connection to have, I think, in the city. If we ever wanted to do any sort of advocacy with paid family leave for people in our community, or for, you know, they're just a great resource. And I used the $45 that was allotted to me for that from the neighborhood association. It actually worked out great. I got lots of food for $30 from Costco, and then $15 of coffee from Starbucks. So, and then, so the communication committee, I am the chair of that committee, and I'm having to step down as the chair because, as you all know, I accepted my position at EBNO doing community outreach and communication. And so in that role, I do a lot of communication with city agencies and city officials, and potentially press releases, and I'm the primary contact for them. So it might get confusing if I'm signing that communication, and then I'm also signing communication as the chair, or, you know, of the LNA. It might get confusing to those people. Who am I acting on at what time? So that said, I, you know, still going to be on the committee, and I'm happy to continue in an advising role, you know, in helping people draft communication and providing a second set of eyes in any capacity. I just won't be signing those things. I think if someone were to take my role, you know, I proposed Christo just because of his background and just like the short amount of time we worked together. I know he has training and experience in community outreach, and is pretty good at, you know, a lot of the communication that comes through for us is stuff that's been escalated, and I think he's good at de-escalation. I don't know if a committee needs to have a chair to exist, but I will
It's a
do.
board liaison.
Yeah, okay, so,
Just as long as there's someone who, you know, takes on the organizing role for that committee, that's what matters.
Yeah, so you could be the only board member on that committee and then just have
Okay.
someone else be chair unless, if Kristen
or
wants
if
to.
we, yeah, if we wanted to have someone who was a point of contact, because basically I should probably not be the point of contact anymore.
I'm not sure that we even need to assign who's the chair, because that's.
Well,
just-
right, but I was kind of
A point of
acting, I think,
contact
as a
is the point person.
result of a vote.
You mainly don't want to be the person signing stuff.
Yeah,
That's all, that's all we
and I
need
was
to do.
the, you know, I think as a result of the vote here, I was the primary
Yeah.
point of contact
Well,
person.
yeah, so
Communication.
you could just like, you won't sign things.
Yeah, but who's going to, what,
Who's going to be the primary
Right.
point of contact if it's not her? That's what she's asking.
because I think it's helpful if there is one person. I mean, aside from, you know, committees do and all that,
But I
but,
think it's this process of elimination. I don't want to do it, Barbara doesn't want to do it, right? There you go.
Boom.
Boom, across the
I
table.
nominate Christo,
Taken by-
the point of contact for the communications board.
it's not a whole lot, but like, you know, when we sent out that, and I sent you the forms for that, when I sent out that form to clarify the difference between LNA and LLA, and to introduce us, stuff like that, or if they've reached out to me for interviews, or, you know, it's not very much. Or if any of the committees were to ask me to do something like that. So, not a whole lot.
So I was wondering, you know, when we have letters, you know, when we take a position as a neighborhood association and want to send a letter to city officials, then we shouldn't have our chair signing it? We should have maybe our vice chair or someone else?
I think we decided that committees can be autonomous about that.
Well, I'm
But if
talking
the
about.
membership wants us to send a letter taking a position.
Yeah.
Sabina would need to sign that as the chair.
Okay, yeah, so that would be as the chair of the LNA. It wouldn't be as.
She's just talking about as a
communication.
Just,
communications
there's
person.
a lot, just trying to clarify
Yeah.
what will happen.
Because her position at NOAA is, right, is
communications.
communications, so it's communications and communications person.
Yeah.
So that's the concern. All right.
It's like the LNA.
So the 2 times a year, she might need to send a letter, an official letter. She'll
Well,
still sign.
hopefully, if we really get going, we're gonna do that more often than twice a year.
Good point.
Because that's really what, a big part of what we are, is an advocacy organization. And in fact, that's the reason why we organized as a 501c4 rather than a charity, be a civic league. is
Yeah,
to-
you can advocate when you're
Yeah.
in that role, right?
Should we take a position
The
on
next
something?
thing I had on there was the bylaws. Frankly, with everything else that's going on and that's been needed of me, it's really hard to find the time to work on this, or it has been. I would like to change that, I would like for us to think about, like, how much time do I want to devote to my neighborhood association business every week? And then be allowed within that to kind of decide how much time I want to spend on emails, how much time I want to spend on committee meetings and, all this other stuff. So that we can all have that freedom to be more selective in how we use our time. But I think one thing that came up after the last general meeting was the fact that something that Jennifer brought up, Autumn brought up, the fact that we don't really have a safety plan or procedure in place if something were to happen at one of our meetings. And I was just gonna, ask if that's something that we want to include in our bylaws. And we don't have a lot of time to spend on it, but I think if some unsafe situation were to come up, do we know how we want to act? Is it our responsibility to kind of guide the crowd out, and how do we want to assign a role to someone to do that,
Can I just comment? So there's like a kind of a hierarchy of things that come through. So bylaws are stuff that you don't really want to put things that might change into frequently. What you're talking about is more of a policy or a procedure, and we can do that without amending the bylaws. We can write a how-to LNA document that basically says, don't do this at meetings, do this at meetings, that kind of stuff.
Policy.
And adopt it as a policy or a procedure at the board, and then later boards can update that document as they see fit.
I've actually started something like that.
Yeah.
We used to have standing rules that were kept with the bylaws at East Portland Neighborhood Office, where there's a tendency for those things to kind of disappear. Whereas the bylaws stick around and are there.
How do we make our bylaws disappear?
Well, they're on the web, so that's not gonna happen. And we're
They're
required to
required by
have
the Secretary of
bylaws.
State, yeah.
We're required by everybody to have those bylaws. and stuff.
So would anyone like to work on the policy and procedure for, safety protocol for our meetings?
Well, just speaking from personal experience, the one time when we almost came to blows in our neighborhood association meeting just happened to be when I was chair. And we ended up adjourning the meeting and just leaving, basically.
What happened to having to adjourn?
And it was, at the time, we were meeting at the New Copper Penny, and there were some people he was very supportive of the police, and there were some people that were very critical of the police, and so it got really heated. And it was untenable, quite frankly. You couldn't continue a meeting having people criticizing the police in the location of a person who is so supportive of the police.
So, do we just need to have like thresholds of when we would adjourn the meeting then?
Aren't you also talking about things like
Fire and-
fire and earthquakes
gunman,
or?
or I don't know,
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
becomes
People throwing
violent.
It's not just about,
The
it's not
needles
just about
really
our own
freak me out.
behavior, which, although there should be an
So
entire
who would-
clause for
who would-
that.
We don't have a lot of time to spend on that right now. Who would work on this? Is it public safety, maybe in collaboration with the communication committee? What do you guys think? It seems like-
I think that's a good combination.
Okay.
Because I think it needs to, the nature of our organization isn't, we're not a supervisory organization or anything like that. I think anything we produce should be something that we could hand off to a member, and it basically would just help them understand their organization. So like, it may be like technically a policy or procedure, but it's like if I were to write like a legit policy or procedure document, like I do for my work sometimes, that's not what I give to my customers as a writer guide, you know?
Right.
Even though it's, all that stuff is derived, I don't think we need to go that deep. I think we basically just need the
A list of what you
writer
do.
guide, you know, and
Maybe a piece of paper at the front whenever you come in that just
Yeah.
says like, don't pull
Basic
out
rules
weapons or guns or
No,
sacks
but
of
it's like more like, it's
needles in
also more
unsafe
like
containers.
making sure that everybody gets out. So you take the list of sign-in, let's say,
So,
and
Yeah,
make sure
exactly.
that those people are all
Yes.
gone out.
Okay.
So we're not leaving
All right,
someone
so we'll
behind.
leave it to the
That kind of
Communication and
stuff.
Public Safety Committee to get together.
I was
the
more worried
procedures.
last meeting about everyone getting scared because I was scared. Like,
yeah.
I was scared.
At the general meeting?
Yeah, there was a bag of needles being swung around and an 8-inch knife. And all I could think of was, I need to get my family and I need to leave. But if I do that now, everyone's gonna panic and try to go out the door at the same time, and then things would get even worse. So I'll just sit here and, you know, I would have rather not been in that position in the first place.
Yeah. That would be part of the,
Yes, go ahead.
Can we just do like a reading before every meeting that just reaffirms responsibilities of the people that are part of that meeting? It would take maybe 5 minutes before the meeting.
So once we have that,
They're
we-
trying to find out who's going to write it.
Yeah.
I can write it.
Go for it.
I'll second
Yeah.
that.
I second that. Woo.
Okay.
I think I move that Jason be given the responsibility of creating this document that we're discussing that explains the behavior of the members at the meeting, and also, excuse me, also safety procedures in the event of some fire or natural disaster, something where we have to come up with an evacuation plan. or
this is
something.
something movable. It's just,
So is that something that
Then I
he would
second.
just work on his own, or should we
You-
work
however he
on
wants to do
together?
it, right?
So I would write a draft,
Yeah.
and I would type it, and I would send it to our emails. And you guys would be able to critique it with me.
Okay,
Maybe
sure.
work it out. That work?
That's perfect.
Okay. Maybe want
I
to
second that.
And one thing I'll add is that as far as evacuation and stuff, I bet the church already has something on file, like how to safely evacuate the building, that we could probably maybe just ask Pastor Steve for and make it a little friendlier
And
and
when
quite
they-
good. So,
They don't usually publicize it, but that building was designed as a Red Cross shelter. So,
oh, in event of a natural
Oh, so we should
disaster.
just stay here.
Don't move.
In the event of a disaster, don't go there.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, then the last thing,
Okay, so do we vote on that?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we're
All
good.
those in favor?
All in favor?
Sorry.
Oh, that's good. I got ahead of myself. And the last item that I had was, so we have a special board meeting coming up on Saturday, which is the day after tomorrow, to address a high number of grievances that have come to us from 2 community members. And the board, you know, decided on a special board meeting to address just those, as opposed to how we would normally do it according to our bylaws, which is during a board meeting, due to the unusually high number of claims, and because we want to give the proper consideration to each grievance. So that's happening on Saturday at the Naya Community Center, starting 11 a.m. I don't anticipate it would take more than 2 hours. And I just want to see if anybody has any questions about that, about how that day will go. Paul from ONI will be there, not to exercise any kind of authority, but just to kind of offer support with the procedures that day and to make sure that we are in compliance.
I understand there won't be recording, right?
Hmm?
I understand he said that, I saw his email, that there won't be
No, that's not what he said. What he
the
said was,
executive session.
what he said was this: they can be recorded, but we can ask for a
Executive
executive
session.
session for the parts that like,
Or we're actually discussing.
that we're actually discussing. We can say, I make a motion for an executive session, and then everyone who would not be central to the argument And then, so basically, it would be a recording of us saying what the grievances are, what my or her, what we generated as a response. When we discuss it, what we're gonna do, that would not be done, but then we would also then record what our final decision was.
And the press is allowed to go into that
They
session,
are,
but not
but not
record.
record.
No
Or not
Record,
record.
or no notes, no recording, and no reporting.
No reporting.
Exactly.
No
So
reporting.
essentially, it would be, if we decide we needed an executive session, it would be a 3-part meeting. We would convene the meeting, we would discuss the topic of the meeting, we would say this is what we're addressing in a very matter-of-fact, short summary way, and then we would, if at that point, we would decide that we need to convene an executive session, we would vote on that. If that happens, then we go into executive session.
And ask anyone who's
All-
there to leave,
yeah.
other than the press.
Other than the press or community members we feel
That are
need to
directly
be there
involved.
to directly
Okay.
involve you. So that would likely just be the grievance.
Has Paul defined what press means? Who is press?
First Amendment, just about anybody now,
Mhm.
blogs and,
I mean, are we saying,
I don't think it's worth arguing over.
yeah,
Just-
it's anybody who wants
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
identify as press.
But they are not allowed to record or film during the
Or
executive
Executive
session.
session.
Or
but-
even,
Or even
report on
take
it.
notes or report on
or
it.
Report on it
But the
afterwards,
meeting
except
itself
for what
is
we
a
publish.
special board meeting, so it's kind of out of our hands. It's just what a special board meeting is members of the community are allowed to attend and the media is allowed to be there and record, so it's not really it's not something that we really have control
I'm
over.
talking about in the executive session.
Right, I just wanted to clarify that
Because
about the special.
it said that press can go into the executive
Yes.
session if they don't record,
Yes.
take notes or whatever.
I would report.
And I was just wondering, who is press? That's what I was
I
asking.
think we can worry about that whenever we need to do a executive session, and we'll have Paul there to
Yeah.
guide us and help us out with
Okay,
any questions. we
that-
have.
that works.
Sorry.
But anyway, part 3 is we come out and we say, this is what we decided. And then we're
And we take a vote.
Just wave your
We
hand.
come out. So we
Take a
have
vote
a
at the
discussion
end.
in the executive session, and then when we take a vote, we bring
yeah, we literally
everybody
just bring our
back in.
decisions back
Yeah.
and
That's done
to be
in
recorded.
in
And-
full public.
I think we should only do an executive session if we absolutely have to, because, I don't know,
Well,
it's my goal to get.
The thing about executive session, it allows people to speak freely. And even if you have a severe case of foot and mouth disease, it's not something that's going to be tarring and feathering you for the rest of your life. I think that having the ability to speak freely and discuss things, sometimes even if it's not politically correct, it does illuminate.
Right.
As well as make people say, ooh, why did you say that?
But I agree with Michael, I just think because of the number that we have and the fact that I've gone over it and that I've showed all of you guys, that there, you probably already have a feeling of what you're, just of what we're dealing with. And so then if there's a straight, if we do a vote and it's the majority, if there's parity, then like
Yeah.
maybe we can go and do it. But I wouldn't say that from the jump street, we're gonna assume that how many did Gary have?
I think about 6.
So we have 16 of them. I think that, there might be 1 or 2 that there might be, but I don't think we need to just think from the jump that we're gonna be
And
kind of going back and forth.
Is there
Can I-
And then it also allows, if we do the executive session, it allows kind of a thing where that person who's the grievant, again, well, what I feel is like a tendency, and I asked Paul if that was true, is there a tendency to kind of try to rehash it when it's actually not a rehashing?
What do you mean?
Like,
Rehashing?
And kind of as if this is a dialogue between the grievant and rather than something that they have a right to be able to right to hear the discussion, rather than it being a back and forth, because that's not how it works. Like, it's not a back and forth. It's them having the right to hear how we deliberate them, not necessarily a right for them to say, well, I don't agree with what you just said, Christo, and I don't agree with what you just said, and you're attacking, that's not kind of the role. The role is for the grievant to be there. And I think that that would be very hard. So I think that if we could, again, limit it to the ones that we really do have parity on.
can I make a time saving proposal too? Because I know that we've I've hopefully, we've read through what the findings were that were already sent to us.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Is there an email with all these grievances?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's the subject line?
It's from Dr.
You know, I
Lexington.
can resend it to you.
And I can resend it to you as well.
Yes.
Well, I just need it once.
Anyhow, there's
No, I
a-
have mine and she
Yeah,
has.
there are
Oh,
quite a few of them where it's like kind of, it's similar between all of them where it's like finding that there were no procedural violations and recommendation, there's no further action to take at this time, that maybe we bundle those. And as a, when we're discussing it, we can pick out ones we think we might want to take action on anyway, but we could just vote to accept those and get those out of the way and only address the ones where there's actually a recommendation of something we can actually do. Just to save time. And I don't know if everyone else is comfortable with that, but it's kind of like going to a city council meeting where they have the consent agenda and they call it good, so.
Because I think that maybe 8 out of my 10 are no action needed because either it's not, because the person's not on the board anymore, or it's actually not we don't have control over it, a different agency has control over what the grievances are, so.
About the grievance, the people making the grievance.
The aggrieved.
The aggrieved. They aren't, they're there to see how we deliberate.
They have a right to know
But-
how we're doing.
Right, and does that mean we cannot ask them any questions?
I think we can.
We can choose
If
to.
we- if we chose to.
We can choose to engage if we think that that's going to give us a better thing, but it's not, again, it's not like a back and forth, like they.
That's
can
also
say
true
that.
at regular board meetings. We can, because a lot of people seem to feel that we're at board meetings that they are not allowed to speak at all,
Right.
that there isn't this option for
Right.
being called on.
So does anyone have any worries or concerns about that day? I know it's an unusual thing to be doing, and so I just wanted to make sure that I knew.
I feel, I was worried at first, but then I remembered we were at NEA, and so then Generations Building, and so I feel totally at peace with what.
Do you know where the room is in that complex? Is it in the middle, or is it on the north side, south side?
Right next to the painting.
Go in by the mural.
Yeah.
Go in by the mural that
Where's
I've
the
never
mural?
seen.
If you come down 86th
Okay.
and from the back where the field is, you can see the mural across the field, so.
It's
It's-
I just had
It's
a
really-
question, because two of the grievance had that issue come up as well. Was there any reason why the board, anyone on the board, failed to contact the grievance within 7 days of receipt of the grievance to arrange for mutually acceptable time, place, and hour to review? Because mutually acceptable means grievant and board, not necessarily back and forth. And then the other thing is, does the board realize that they have missed the 60 days according to ONI standards by which they must, not maybe not kind of, sort of, maybe, that they must reply to the grievance? Because I know one grievance is over 90 days and the other one I think is also over 60 days. So where did the board come up with this decision that they could sort of reinvent bylaws according to their personal wishes and at their discretion?
So to answer your first question, I think it goes back to understanding like where we are in the process of addressing these grievances. So the part about reaching out to the person filing the grievance and deciding on a mutually acceptable time and place to meet and go over that, over the grievance has happened.
No, it hasn't. I'm one of the grievance. It did not happen.
So
It did not happen within 7 days. It happened over a month after. And, I mean, the point was is that you did not have to meet within 7 days, but you needed to have acknowledged receipt, called the grievant and said, hey, we received your grievances. When within the next 60-day
Sure.
period would you like to meet? 60 days from October 2nd is not January 13th.
So Amina did reach out.
No, that was in
prior to
November. That was November 11th. That was the first time I got contacted. That's way over 7 days after October 2nd. So both grievance, as far as I know I have declared this meeting illegitimate because you missed all deadlines, and you were, ONI was notified of that, EPNO was notified of that, LNA was notified of that. So we don't understand why the board is insisting on having a special meeting with press, mind you, when you've missed all deadlines. It's no longer relevant, it's at the appeal stage right now. And then EPNO would need to step in and talk to the board like, hey, you have an issue with keeping up with your bylaws, because then two very basic things, and it's very clear. Within 7 days, you had to, of receipt of the grievance, you had to have contacted the person for a mutually acceptable time, place, and hour. That's been
So
repeated.
even if that were not to have happened,
But it's still over
if
60
we
days,
were
it's
to
90
have
days.
missed that deadline, that we are still at this point doing the best we can.
It's not
And-
good enough, you missed the deadlines, it's at appeal then. Because otherwise, no, just let me finish one thing.
Okay.
Because then what goes on is that the grievance are only given 45 days within which to file a grievance. So if the people judging the grievance are going to be allowed to go like 60, 90, 120, whenever they feel like it, well then we need to allow LNA members opportunities to go way beyond 45 days and say, well, you know, this person is filing it now, and actually I had something like that happen to me 6 years ago, and I would like to join
So-
with this person.
Yeah, and that can be something to bring up to the general membership, and I mean, you know, I see that what's happening now is a good opportunity for us to look at the bylaws and improve them, and I think, you know, you bring up some good points, and if the goal of this is to find resolution and to improve our organization and our bylaws, and even hold us accountable, then, you know, I think what we're doing right now is work in that direction, and your input is valued, and you are invited to attend on Saturday. We do have to hold the meeting, and because of the nature of it being a special meeting, we don't really have a say in whether or not the press can be there. And we are doing the meeting because we are acting in good faith to address your grievances and to find solutions and to really, you know, make you feel heard.
But the thing is that in order to have made me feel heard, you would have needed to follow the bylaws in the first place, which is within 7 days. And I know the other grievance feels the same way. And I think that's what's going to happen now, is people are going to say, well, let's go back way beyond the 45 days, and they would be justified to do that too. And that would be a legal issue as well too. But right now, I just want to make sure, I know Gary Primack has said the same thing, it is an illegitimate meeting. And EPNO and ONI and everybody else knows that as well too. All the deadlines were missed. At that point, it should have gone to the appeal stage over at EPNO, and actually because of a conflict of interest, it probably should be going to ONI. And
Was it at EPNO who said we should be doing it?
the appeal would be at EPNO, yeah.
They said we should do this, what we're doing on Saturday.
But EPNO really, has EPNO been truly competent? I mean,
That's
yeah,
the question.
do
I
we
mean,
really
we can't.
trust EPNO? I mean, you know, do we really trust EPNO? We have
Can I make a suggestion? We're having a whole meeting on Saturday to discuss
Yes.
this, and we have 2 minutes left that we've
Yes.
agreed to be here.
Well,
Yeah, but the
I
thing
just have
is
to
that
say one
two
thing,
grievance are not
because
showing up.
I mean, yeah.
in case she's not there, as a person who went over the things, I do want to say that I looked over them, and that I do think that a lot of her grievances, all of her grievances were valid. Our inability to act on a lot of them, it has nothing to do with validity, and what I liked about it was, in the conclusion, was that essentially because of her grievances and because of her bringing it up, a lot of the policy is changed, and that bylaws are going to be looked at because of what she has brought up. And so I know that she wasn't happy with me or the process, but I do want to say that I appreciate you bringing these things up, because they are things that we as a board, and especially because a lot of us are new, that are valid things that we need to look at so that we don't have these same issues in the future.
So can I just say that we need to move to the secretaries, because they're here.
Wasn't there a report?
Sorry.
I just wanted to give a quick report so everybody's aware of what's going on with the kiosk. Because of what happened over the last week with someone accessing the kiosk again, and we've already approved funds to fix the locks. I just took the initiative to go ahead and try to move forward on that project, and I've got a welder lined up, but also in the process of trying to find power for the welder. I discovered that in 2 weeks from now, they are moving the kiosk back to its original location, so I'm just gonna hold off until it gets moved, use the power at the new building, and I'm already
moving
in
it?
touch. Prosper Portland will move it back. They moved it so they could build their building, and now they're gonna move it, pay to move it back. So got a welder lined up, got power lined up, moving's gonna happen. We're gonna need to sign, or EPN is gonna actually probably need to sign a new permit. I went back in June to Victor, and never got it back, so it's actually technically been unpermitted for the last 6 months, so we might need to make sure that that gets followed through on the permit side. That's all, done.
Awesome. So now we can move on to meeting our board secretary
Can I
candidates.
just say one thing?
Yes.
Robert looks like he's leaving.
Yeah.
So can you, Robert?
Oh, y'all said 8:30, I was just kind of getting ready.
Oh,
Sorry.
But are
You don't have to leave right
Are
second?
you gonna?
You want to hear Lents Fair? I'll tell you all about it. I'm not taking off, you're good.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we have 2 candidates here for the board secretary position. They are actually taking notes for us tonight, and thank you guys for coming and staying late. Would you like to introduce yourselves to the board? Who would like to go first?
Okay, thanks. My name's Lacey, and I live just a few blocks away over on 9th Street, and I've lived in the neighborhood since 2009, but I've lived in Portland my whole life. I have watched from afar, and I would like to get more involved. This has definitely been an eye-opening evening. But I do think the goal of this organization is to help and empower the residents and the citizens who might not know how to do that or know how to access services. And I think organization is crucial to that. I'm a real estate agent, and I do also work in newsrooms. So I understand organization, I understand deadlines and timelines and things like that. So yeah, I don't know, I just want to be a part of it, frankly. And I do love the neighborhood, and I think that we are in a position to present Lents in a better way than it is perceived, and I would like to be a part of that.
What do you do in newsrooms?
Well, I'm actually right now I'm a traffic anchor, but I've worked as like an assignment editor, digital web producer.
Which station do you work at?
I work at Channel 8, KSHU.
Have you done this kind of thing before?
I have not unless you count like high school, sophomore class council. So, I would definitely need a refresher in kind of the rules and regulations and things like that, but I'm open to learning new things.
Great.
Cool. Yay.
So I'm just gonna pass on this. And I put them in color by accident, so that won't happen with notes. So I'm David. I have been a member or a community member here at Lents since August of last year. My very first day I moved in, I went to the election meeting that was last year, and that was quite an opening.
You mean this past
experience.
September?
No, and
One before.
the one before, the very heated one. I guess they all
So was this.
tend to get that way. But yeah, so I've come to a couple meetings. I live on 89th and Woodstock. I serve currently on the Portland Business Alliance's Emerging Professionals. I'm the chair. I've served on the Young Nonprofit Professionals Network Board for the last 4 years. And I'm rolling off of some of these commitments. So I did Leadership Portland, and so part of that was a really great experience into building out kind of more of that civic engagement. And so for me, starting locally is really important to me. Since I lived here, we try to go to all the farmers markets, we do different events, and so using some of those skills, I've been on boards, I want to get more involved in kind of that community engagement here in Lents, and if I can help, I'm kind of an advocate for Lents. I know I haven't lived here as long as many of you have, but at any time I get to tell people how wonderful we are, they're like, oh, I've heard great things. And so seeing that the last year and a half, I know it's been nice to share my experience with that, and so yeah, I would love to.
How many people have said, oh, you live in Felony Flats?
I get that sometimes. My fiance he grew up here on 89th and Burnside. So he went to Franklin, and so like back when everyone's like, he's like, it's changed, it's different. And you know, I hear it occasionally, but more like 3 years ago when we started looking, but not so much now. Like everyone's like, Lens, I want to go there, like I want to live there. So
We have affordable housing.
I know, right? And I know it's kind of on the up and up, and you know, if I can assist with whether it's taking notes or kind of communicating some more of the great work. I was looking online at the bylaws and kind of what the secretary's role is, and trying to find new ways to kind of get out what we do. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
I'm literally thinking, can there be such thing as a co-secretary?
So you said there was another.
It hasn't been officially
Yeah.
announced yet, so
Is it an at-large position?
we had someone resign, so there's an
Two at-large
I
positions.
am completely fine kind of withdrawing my name if I could be considered for the at-large. I know there's some other committees people talked about like, oh, someone should take this on. And I was like, oh wait, I'm not on the board.
Oh, no, you can be on any community.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
then-
okay. So I was like, oh, I can help out with
No,
that.
you
But
can be on any
I was
committee.
getting cramps over here. I'm on page 6, and I'm like, oh, okay. I've seen some of the passage notes, and I'm like, they are not this much. And I saw you over there writing, so I was like, okay, like, you know, I'm happy withdrawing my consideration for secretary. And
It's a
I'll be
lot
happy
of
to-
work. Secretary is a lot of work.
Yeah, I've been in secretary roles before, and we had for YMTN 86 pages of bylaws, which I helped to draft. So like talking about adding things to bylaws, I was like, ooh.
What organization?
The Young Nonprofit Professionals Network.
They have 89.
Or yeah, it's 86
They have
pages.
awesome happy hours, I would definitely. If
They
you work
need
for a
them,
nonprofit,
But it's an all volunteer board, so that was a process. So like, I mean, I completely am fine, like knowing that there's other opportunities. And I think that might more align with my skill sets. I can take notes, but I was like over here cramping up, and I'm like, oh, I'm missing this. All the numbers for the treasurer report, I just made up. So.
You can always get them from Ray after the.
Okay, that's what I assumed.
That's the-
And I have a
that's the
couple of
criteria,
fill-ins,
yeah.
Sabina.
I would have thought a big problem was that you don't know our names.
Oh, yeah. I kind of got names.
The guy in the red shirt, the guy with the baseball cap.
So, okay, so,
I think we have to wait till after they.
I'm fine with after it's announced. You know.
having heard all that, I move, just to move the meeting on.
That we what?
That we appoint Lacey Hammerlin to the secretary position, and bring to the next general meeting, for the general membership to ratify.
I second that.
And I it. I it.
Okay, well then.
There you go.
I was like, I should
And
stop
then, and then secondly, I move that we appoint David Carroll to be a member of all our committees and help us all. Just kidding.
I don't know. And
Yeah.
also, the at-large position that
Yeah.
is, the person is resigning, but it needs to be announced at our general meeting. If you would consider, like at our next board meeting, coming and then we go through it would be basically the same process, and then you could be appointed, and then you're voted on by the general
We
membership.
do need to let the general membership know that.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so.
That's what I'm saying, is
But
that.
I'm confused kind of around that, I was just gonna ask a question. So how long before we tell the general membership? Because our meetings are like on the 20-something, it's like the 23rd, then our next board meeting is when?
I don't think Jennifer's
There'll be a second
technically
Thursday in
resigned yet.
February.
No, I'm not talking
Jennifer,
general.
I'm talking about
Autumn.
Yeah.
So, but I'm
Next
saying,
general
how quickly
meeting.
can we turn around and say that we've
We can
given
get
enough opportunity for people to come and,
We can get him appointed at the February board meeting and ratified at the February general.
okay, so that 2 weeks is enough to get other people who might be interested in, that's not going to get, we're not gonna get any blowback saying that we
Yeah.
haven't given enough time for other
Sure.
people.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm concerned about, because
Right.
between us announcing secretary and now, it's been a long time. So I was thinking maybe we gave such a long time so that people felt that they had enough time.
And you have to remember, it's also going to be on the agenda that's going to be published for the general membership.
Okay, so that is enough.
And that's
Yeah.
getting them noticed, yeah.
And I also add, if there are other people when you open it that blow me out of the water, I'm completely fine. I don't want there to be like this, well, we kind of said that we want Dave. I can still be on the committee, so.
It's
If
been
we
a
find
while.
something to happen anyway.
It has been a while since we've had a business person on our board. And
It
it's
would be
always
nice,
been a
yeah.
good thing to have a business person on our board.
I will do what I can.
And And you're always welcome to like tag team with Lacey too. I mean, she's the secretary, she'll have the responsibilities and the vote, but that doesn't mean nobody can help her.
So is the status of our composition that, so Autumn has formally resigned,
Yes.
and Jennifer has said that she's gonna resign.
Right
Later in the month, but she has not.
She will not be resigning until
After
after the
October,
after the forum town
February
hall.
17th or something, the day after she said that she was.
But she would like to remain chair of the committee.
Of course she can, I mean, that's.
Absolutely. And then Barbara and I are the liaisons for that, for the committee.
And Autumn
together.
is remaining on that committee.
Exactly.
Correct.
So both of them are committee.
Right, they're still gonna be involved. They're still allowed to do wonderful work in our community.
Exactly.
Yes.
So then, if she does in fact resign, then we'll announce that at February meeting, and then we'll move from there as well.
Well, yeah, because
So-
it's 13th.
Next, we have the 2018 Lents Fair Planning Committee, and Robert Schultz is here to talk about it.
Patiently waiting.
I'll be here either way. So, brief history. 2016, the corner of like 92nd and Foster was the sorry. Okay, sorry. I made notes, then I just totally lost where I was at with them. So, 92nd and Foster, Amanda was in charge of the event, and it was very small scale because a bunch of grants hadn't been approved from the outside funding sources. 2015, Amanda was in charge and was given $5,000 to run the fair by Lents Grown, and a bunch of grants were approved by like Office of Neighborhood Involvement, etc. I came in 2016 when the event was looking like it wouldn't happen, and several board members were kind of against it happening because of the funding issue. There was a belief that it needed $13,000 and that money needed to come from grants in order to have the fair. We had the fair for, I think, under $4,000, something like that, $4,000 or $5,000. And at that time, it was about 800 people served. In 2017, I was the chair of the event and partnered with Oregon Walks and Lents Green Lents, Green Lents, I always mess up their name, sorry. And that was a three-tiered partnership. We had our part, which was the entertainment in Lents Park, and
Which was
you like the well, and then I also did a pre-event with the Pickles where we had, which was supposed to be the community, but it ended up being most of the team and the community pick the music that was going to be at the event by playing samples at the venue, and that worked out phenomenally well. In fact, far better than I'd ever hoped for. And the Pickles were great with that and want to have a more larger, robust role in this year's events. In fact, they even offered to have it in the park there, but there's a host of problems with that. So, where will 2018 Lents Fair be? I know Ray always talks about that people like a Founders Day parade, and we tried to attach that, at least the Founders part, to the fair with a name or title, and that just didn't work. I'm suggesting it's either Lents Fair or Lents Street Fair to give it a name that's more
Palatable.
Yeah, right. There you go, palatable. And can be passed on generationally, so each subsequent year it can stay that way.
Founders Day is different from the street fair. so
Right.
it's,
I agree. So 2018 can be in the park. To be in the park, if you have vendors that make money to sell their stuff, crazy fees all out of the woodwork. Additionally, the free use of parks that Lents can use twice a year, once for National Night Out and once for any event that they choose, doesn't apply if people make money in the park. And there's a fight to be had there that I started already and have talked to a couple commissioners about, and have offered to go down to City Council and raise a little cane. And they asked me to wait a little bit because there were some changes internally with parks and their different bureaus and stuff, and they were like, it might be better. So I was like, yeah, I'll wait. So that's a big question. Do you want it in a park? There is some pieces of land we could move it to that would be less cost, because there's a lot of cost associated with Lents Park, and I didn't bring that file with me, I'm sorry, to say give you all the numbers of that. There's also the question of what does the Lents Neighborhood Association want from the street fair. The Green Ring want to take over the fair so that they can earn money for their organization. I personally think that's the wrong focus, because this should be for the community. So I personally go for cost neutral for the event. That's what I've striven for in the last 2 years with my participation and with my role last year. So the Lents portion of the entertainment and everything was about right around $3,500 last year. So that's specifically what I was kind of over and in charge of. And then we used the East Portland neighbors to kind of help facilitate that. I know we didn't necessarily go through the treasurer, but that was more of a matter of we didn't need to. Like, the funds were set aside in the summer event fund, and they were okay with the submissions of like, we need a check to pay this band and that band, and all those things. So it worked out just fine, right?
So, yeah, I've been hearing from other folks that EPN has been very slow with the checks. Did
So the
you
trick
have
to
any
that was
of
to say, we're having an event on this day, and we'll need a check for this band, and for that band, and this band, and basically have it done in advance. And that's what we've done, yeah. And that was kind of a product of the committee work. Currently, or I should say for 2017, the committee was Michael as a liaison, Judy as a key figure for fundraising, Char, which I know there's a lot of hostility towards them, was a key figure for fundraising. I mean, the two of them raised the bulk of the money for that event. There was some other things that, you know, I interacted with that made more money come in, but it wasn't any real work for me, it was more work for them, right? And then Krista Dennis was key for support of the pre-event at the Pickles game. Amir was involved and wants to be involved in the future, but very nominally. Future, Barbara expressed an interest in being involved. I don't know if Judy or Char want to have any involvement with that. Char and David, under the very contentious LNLA, have formed their own nonprofit and received that status. So I don't know that they'll want to involve in this because they have their own stuff going on. So whatever.
I have a question. So what we're looking at is, okay, so we're looking at trying to figure out how we're going to raise the $3,500.
No, I have no problem with that.
So what is your question? Are you asking a
So
question?
what I'm presenting to the board is kind of a tiered. I wanted you to kind of understand where things were and what my involvement was. Last year it was about 340 of my personal hours. I know there's been members in the community that have tried to say that, oh, Robert didn't do anything, it was the other agencies and stuff, but that's actually very false. Lents Green had a full-time staffer and a part-time staffer working on this for at least a week's worth of time, plus, and I say worth of time because it's staggered out for the months ahead of time.
Plus they're paid, right?
Yes, full-time paid and part-time paid. Green or Oregon Walks had 5 full-time paid staffers, 2 of which were the whole time and 3 of which came on towards the last 2 months. So their investment of time is all paid. Mine was 340 hours, actually a little higher than that, but we'll call it 340 unpaid time. So that's the kind of level of commitment. In Amanda's time, she was able to achieve that by getting paid, right? So my point in saying all that is it's just a very high demand spot.
Amanda got paid?
Yeah, it's $5,000 in
As the
2016.
chairperson? Which she
$5,000 in 2016 from Lents Grown.
She was given that much money?
Yeah.
For her own self?
Yeah.
Oh, because she was working for Lens Grown, you mean?
No, she was given that money to run the fair.
Are you here for a meeting?
Oh, not for her personally, you mean?
For her personally to run the fair, yeah.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Okay,
She
salary
was, she
for
was
running the
paid
fair.
for run, it's actually a stipend, I believe is how they refer to it.
From Lens Grown to run the Lens Neighborhood Association
Yeah, because they got a grant through PDC to give that money over. It's all, I mean, it's nothing illicit. I mean,
No, I
it's-
was just trying to,
yeah, it's very, it turns out, because I've now become well versed in this stuff, it's actually very common practice for these things to happen.
Why can't? Sorry, Robert.
No, you're fine. So with all that is the question, number one, what does the LNA want from this event? Is it, as at least as I've been kind of running it, we just want to put something on for the community? Or is it something else? Do we want to try to use this as a revenue raiser for the LNA? Because those are valid ways to use this event. And then secondly is how does the LNA want to support this event? And does the board want to offer time to it? Do they want to? In the last year, I don't think there was much posted on the the Facebook page or the website. There were some notices, but it wasn't really engaging.
Finish that deadline, that we are still at this point doing the best we can.
It's not good enough. You missed the deadlines. It's at appeal then. Because otherwise, no, just let me finish one thing.
Okay.
Because then what goes on is that the grievance are only given 45 days within which to file a grievance. So if the people judging the grievance are going to be allowed to go like 60, 90, 120, whenever they feel like it, well then we need to allow LNA members opportunities to go way beyond 45 days and say, well, you know, this person is filing it now, and actually I had something like that happen to me 6 years ago, and I would like to join with this person.
Yeah, and that's gonna be something to bring up to the general membership and
To have an audit of sort of all of our finances, just that's, when I've been in previous nonprofit organizations, it's just standard. You just have a third-party audit, and it's for your own self-protection. more than anything else, and also for transparency. That and the idea of, I know that our bylaws don't currently require this, but I would love to have a greater sense of transparency and accessibility and just information about our committees. I have no clue, as a board member, I feel like the board should understand what are the committees, who are the members of the committees, what are they doing? They're empowered to sort of be part of this organization.
That's
That's
what people are
I'm just
talking
coming
about.
up with journal observations.
Here's what I'm saying, our community members.
What are you doing?
Are,
You said it wasn't, we weren't recording anymore.
My camera's out. I was just going for this. Sorry. I'll turn it off.
So we have community members, and I'm gonna include myself as a community member who would like to see a third-party, independent, external audit. That's not an unusual thing for an organization to have a.
Do
that's just-
it.
That's just standard.
It'll be
What I-
great.
what I-
It's not unusual for organizations with budgets that are over $100,000 or $10,000 a year.
Yeah, we haven't, I mean, that could use
Ours
it
is
for.
like,
Finish,
don't know
please.
how
Cor-
much it
costs.
Hey, I'm gonna finish. It is not, maybe it's not required, but I think it's highly advisable. And there's a great deal of mistrust. The Lents Neighborhood Association, among 95 neighborhood organizations throughout this entire city, is known as the most dysfunctional neighborhood association.
Who
By
says
who?
that?
By
Who
who?
says that?
I'm not gonna name names.
Okay,
but
well, there's
Okay,
like 5
well, then
people that
you're-
say that to you that you're listening
I would
to.
like to make a
No,
motion.
it's not 5 people.
That's
It's
not
people
true.
at the city level.
There are objective measures, like the amount of time that's spent with dealing with grievances
Okay,
and
so it's-
dysfunction.
We
So-
know who it is then.
So
Okay.
my point with that is that the integrity of this organization is important. And part of developing a sense of integrity is to do things like have an external audit. So what I would like to propose is that we at least, there's people saying it's gonna be too expensive, that we have a sense of, let's find out how much it
I'm
costs.
fine with that,
Seconded.
but I'm gonna say, are you gonna be happy if someone comes back and says, this is gonna cost over $1,000, and we say, that's not a reasonable expenditure for the scale of
We
budget
can
that
deal
we
with that
have.
at that
Then-
time.
then I'm-
Vote
I
on
agree
that.
with
We
that, but if someone came back and said, like, I don't know, it's
Then we'll-
$100 or $200.
There may be possibilities.
Let's find out how much it costs.
At one point, a professor who had just retired had offered to do a financial review for EPN. But because of the way things were, we were at the time trying to, I think that we were getting, we had the accountant that we were trying to hire at the time, and he wasn't able to do the accounting stuff that we needed, so that's the reason why we didn't go for that. So there's always possibilities, although I don't have very many contacts in that world now, so we would need to have someone that would have contacts.
I think that what I would be the most comfortable with is somebody designated to say to go look into it. And then I would say that again, because there is this mistrust of whatever we're doing with the money or whatever, even though I do myself, I look for the things that we do it every month, that is good for me, but just as you said, to rebuild that kind of trust, I think that it should be actually something that we take to the general meeting, that they vote on, do they wanna spend that amount of money? So yes, we can go and say that we don't think that 10% of our budget should be used in it, but I think that the people who don't trust us are the people not in this room. They're the people who are outside of this room. And so I think that they should be the people who then vote on it. And then if they vote on it and then they and they say, yes, we want to do this. And again, as has been stated here, a lot of the things that are questionable are not from this board themselves, but it will be saying in good faith, we are trying to make ourselves.
The people to whom we are accountable, which is
Right,
the community.
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
So I love that. So trying to understand what would it cost to get an audit done, what's involved, getting someone who could be doing that. If there's a huge cost, then going to the general membership, like I think we should do with so many things, going back saying, hey, we're here to serve you. What do you guys want us to do with this? What are the trade-offs with our budget? Or is that gonna blow the whole budget, or are there other things that we then can't spend the money on? And have that dialogue, but I think we need to be able to get to that point where we know what we're talking about, we know what it costs.
So would you like to take on that and
Yeah.
find out, do we need to make a motion to?
No, someone can research.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
do
can find out how much
research.
it costs to
And
get
then-
a.
And then bring it to the general.
And I
Yeah,
just,
so-
I just wanna, for the record, for like the 5th time, since I was the person that dealt with the situation, the Copper Penny sign was in storage, the Lents Neighborhood Association was on the hook for getting it out of storage by April 1st. I asked 5 members of the community and 1 member to please follow up on it many times. And they all said, yes, we're working on it, and then 2 weeks before it needed to be out of the building, nobody had done anything. So I basically just went into immediate problem-solving mode. I called the one sign moving company in town that had a flatbed truck that could move a 14-foot in diameter, almost 2-ton sign with a crane. And they went and removed it, and I coordinated
First,
it.
they quoted us that it would be.
They quoted us an hourly rate, and I extrapolated from that it was just an hourly rate, and then the invoice came back and it was basically double. Because they
It was
sent
4
2
times as
guys.
much.
They sent 2
Oh,
guys
that's-
out, and it
what's
took
what's
us
the
twice as
current
long.
status of that, I think, is the question.
Oh, we.
The sign?
Yeah.
We own the
We
sign?
found it, we own it, we found a free place to store it. It is a sign that was in the air and was coated with weather-resistant paint. There is no reason why it's not deteriorating on the ground. There's no reason why it can't be outside. It lived outside for 3-4 decades.
And we have
So-
talked about it at meetings, public forum to the membership, and everyone
So
knows
we have
that
an
sign is
asset
sitting
that
on the
we
ground.
owned, and it's being stored for free, and we can
Because the
do
community
whatever we
determined
want.
that they
And one
wanted
other
this as part of
detail,
Lents, and they
people-
wanted to keep it.
People in the neighborhood that have bitched about this,
Yeah.
my suggestion to them was, why don't you get a tarp and cover it if you're so worried that it is now deteriorating on the ground? And they did nothing. That was a I'm just saying,
So thank
that it
you
was
for
like, there was a
speaking
lot
that
of
question.
bitching about it, and do something. If you don't like what's being done, and you don't like it being stored there, then come up with a plan.
Or
So-
come to the neighborhood association meeting and make a motion to do something with the sign, because
there
there's
you
an
go.
asset and
Here's to
something we
that.
can do.
Because,
Yeah.
because regardless of whatever happens, ultimately, even if we, whatever, we're still gonna have to pay to move it to wherever.
We would have had to pay Oregon
That's
Historical Society
Okay.
the cost of moving the sign to another location and then additional storage
Right,
fees,
and
so.
Yep.
Okay,
um,
thank you for the.
Thank you,
addressing that.
Tidy Tidy.
I tried to make
for
the
storing
most
it for
prudent
free.
financial decision of getting it out of the storage place it had to be out of and getting it to a free storage space. And
How much would
I think at this point, all of the meeting minutes that haven't been approved are up on the website. So we can notify people that they're there and vote on them.
That's gonna be voted on at the basement, yeah, that
Finally.
should be on the agenda.
Yes,
Good.
um,
Excellent.
And I would just like to throw out there, if I have to address things that have been rehashed 5 or 6 times again, because someone is concerned that's heard the story 5 times, honestly, please ask me first before making it making it like fact that this is what happened, because people are concerned, so that, I find that really,
I
really
wasn't aware that you were a point person.
Yes, and this is what we're talking about with the personalization of things. That particular issue
Was
is
very
people
much
coming
so.
after me.
Was very,
Okay.
very much
And
about.
And
super
all I was
resolved.
doing was
Just a little
putting out a
background.
fire, and the issue's been resolved over and over, and it's been
And the
explained
board
over and over
totally
again.
had a vote before we even moved it, and we
Yes.
all agreed
So it was not, it
that
was
we
not
would get the
Cora
company to move the
doing
sign.
something and pulling a fast one on
Okay.
the,
But I
on
don't
the
think
LNA.
Krista- I don't think Krista was talking about incriminating anyone. I
Well,
think
that's
he's
been the
saying
inclination, that's
that-
been what's been
okay,
said
but-
about it before
but
you got on the
he's
board.
saying
It was
that
said
if
many,
we do
many,
an
many
audit,
times.
it would further clear that up.
I
It would
agree.
further show, and it would further
If
show
we can afford it.
transparency. It's
Yes.
not to incriminate anyone. It's to
Mhm.
further show, right? Is that what you're saying? It's to further show that we've been doing things
Right,
we're supposed
exactly.
to.
The,
And
the
I-
question was, what's an example of something that would be, why an audit would be relevant? And it would be if there are questions from our community, from the people that we're representing, from our Lents Neighborhood Association members, about any of our financial dealings, then it's highly beneficial to have a third-party audit of those things and have that report. And it's either critical of what we're doing and it shows us room for improvement, or it says, what you're doing is perfect and it proves to the world that
Is
we've
that
got our.
something you